Good evening, we'll go ahead and get started with the Riverside Council meeting for Monday, March 3rd at 6 p.m. and we will begin with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time, we have some people online, we have people in the audience. Is there anyone that has any public comments that would like to come to the podium or raise their hand on Zoom? All right, I'm not seeing anything on Zoom and nothing from the audience, so at this time, we'll move on to item 31, discussion and consideration of fiscal year 25-26 budget requests. And first, we've got the Winthrop Heritage Day. We have Jennifer Phillips in the audience. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. Thank you for supporting us last year with Winthrop Heritage Day 2024, which was the first one, and it was created out of this Easter Centennial event. Was much more successful, reached more people, and I believe was a good representation of our town and what we want and some values that we want to have within our communities. As you have before you, there's a proposal for 2025. You'll see that the budget is a lot higher. I know I didn't put in a dollar figure for a total ask, but we would like to ask for the town to cover the insurance as it did last year. Last year's actual expense was $515. We were told that by the insurance company it's too soon to quote, and they don't anticipate it going over $600 at the most, so that's what we estimated. Then there's the cost of permits and municipal employees, which I know that you guys understand. I don't necessarily have those dollar amounts, but we did take into consideration some comments from last year's meeting from the town councilors, and we have changed the date. The date is now July 26th. It's right in the middle of summer. It doesn't conflict with any of the surrounding celebrations, be it the Monmouth Fair or Old Hallowell Days, the Wayne Strawberry Festival, and so on. It was perfect. It was like the only weekend. And so I think that this could become a trend for us to have and maintain going forward. It will allow a lot more Winthrop residents to attend with their families because they will not be out of town for Labor Day, so the last hurrah before school starts. And a lot of the summer visitors and tourists will still be in town before they go back to their homes, which obviously a lot of them were gone during last year's event. So that was the reason for that increase. Based on the results of last year with a smaller attendance, but definitely larger than the Easter Centennial event, we used up all of the supplies we could in volunteer effort and last minute begging and so on and so forth, because we obviously weren't in any of the budget, the town's fiscal budget last year. We had, people that were doing face painting that paid for their own supplies and did not get reimbursed and volunteered their time. We had a lot of discounts on things, but we can't ask for that necessarily the second year. We did have sponsorships, and we know that we need to advertise better in the coming year, but we did what we could in the less than month time we had to plan last year's event. So I meant to put in, and I realized I had an error. I meant to put in $1,500 for advertising expenses because radio ads and print ads are more pricey, and none of that has been done in the past. And we would like to do a little bit of that to see if it makes a difference as well to getting the word out, since so many people said that they were unaware, even though we utilize town alerts and other flyers and advertising, word of mouth, social media, and so on. Overall, in looking at our expenses and how they've grown, another thing that is a major cost is we wanted to put in renting generators. So that's what like some of the equipment costs would be for, because there isn't a lot of electrical supply at North Cross Point. We had to run extension cords from the background, from the bathroom, and then we had to then put it into a power, more like a industrial power strip, so to speak, and run cords from there. And it's not really safe or ideal. So that's why we'd like to have some rental generators if we need to. And that's where some of these cost expenses go to. So I'm asking for a total ask of a minimum of $4,000 and up to $5,000 for the entire event. This is something that the committee is doing to help boost our image to the surrounding communities and tell people that Winthrop is a place to be, it's a great place to raise a family, and that you want to be here. Because of the new date, I feel like it's a total reboot. So in some ways, it's like comparing apples to oranges for this year's coming expenses to next year's. You know, next year, we're hoping that we'll be able to come forward with a more accurate budgeting aspect. We have lots of goals and dreams for the coming year, since we have more time to plan, more time to promote, and so on. We definitely want to make an impact, and we hope that we can get the town's support. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Hi, thanks, Tom. Couple of questions. You're estimating it to be roughly around the $6,775 potentially.
Mhm.
Okay. And just this question was kind of just stated, if Anthony, you did say they did have a balance already correctly.
No, so the information I provided earlier today, Jim, that was just meant to give you an indication of what was spent on the event last year. So previously the town, I think there'd been some fundraising that was done, and the town was sort of serving as the fiduciary agent for that. And so we had nearly $4,000 that was socked away in an account specifically for the Sester Centennial celebration. They spent a couple $100 more than that. So just so that you guys know how much was spent last year, it was $4,200.
Do you anticipate getting like some more sponsors or
Absolutely. I think we're gonna get more sponsors.
what's on?
Yes, having more time, having more interest, people learning about it. After the event happened, some people reached out to me and said, oh, I wish I could have been there. Let me know, you know, if you're having this again next year, so we can be there. It was really wonderful, because a lot of people know I wear many hats, and this past weekend I was at the Historical Society running the indoor yard sale. And I had two individuals show up that were either at Winthrop Heritage Day last year or had participated in it and said, is it happening this year? We really want to go again. It was so wonderful. And that brought me joy, because they didn't know how to reach me and they couldn't remember my name, but they knew I volunteer there, so they thought I might be there. And that's kind of cool when you get set up that way. So I told them, ironically, it's being presented to the town council on Monday. So watch our Facebook page and we'll make it be known.
Are you doing, do you have like food trucks and?
Yes, so we already have two of our vendors from last year confirmed. We were waiting to get approval before we got the rest of them confirmed. So some of them are also asking for a financial commitment. we don't have agreements for those yet. I didn't necessarily write that into the proposal because the amounts are all over the board. You know, some people have like a $1,200 minimum, and if they make $1,200, then you pay nothing. Some, if they have like a $250 minimum. It's really hard to know beforehand, but we had 3 food outlets last year. Someone selling ice cream and snow cones, and the Grange also sold some ice cream and drinks as well.
So, is it typical that they like would pay for a vendor swap? I'm not sure. Or is it that just once the event is big enough that they?
That's once the event is big enough. So usually food trucks have a minimum that they will want to come for just for any event, unless it's some place that they've been going traditionally that they know that they're going to make a lot of money. I can tell you that Ricky is in Scouts, and we had a vendor that paid, a food truck that paid to be at his craft fair that they do every year over Thanksgiving weekend. And the gentleman left because he felt like he didn't have enough sales. And that was painful because he paid to be there. And so that's not necessarily a great thing. Yeah, we made money off of him still. He didn't ask for a refund, but then, you know, we advertised that that food truck would be there, and in the end, it wasn't only there for 1 of 3 days.
Here, you go first.
Okay. Thank you for coming. Can you just walk me through the Heritage Committee? Did you guys form like a 401c or non-profit?
So we visited that idea.
Okay.
We do eventually want to become our own entity of a 501c3, but we're still in, you know, the infancy stages of the organization that we are, but we are growing. And the Historical Society has agreed to be our financial fiduciary for the money and for nonprofit status if we are getting any donations that require that request. That contract is not finalized. We're hoping that Andy can tell you because he's on the board at the Historical Society with me. But we're working on getting that finalized. One of the individuals that was working on it with us has had some health challenges in her family. We're hoping to present it at our board meeting this week, but it might have to be presented at a different time. But pretty much we had all but one person on the board of directors for the Historical Society approved the fiduciary agreement.
Okay, and I'm sure chairperson and treasurer.
So right now we have some, we all kind of serve as a co-chair. We're building our committee. We have about 6 active individuals and it's broken down. But last year we did have some people who committed to be on the committee. And in the end, they either left or decided that they had too many things going on in life otherwise. So the 4 of us were able to pull off a miracle.
Right.
Because we did not want to make the town look bad, and I stake my name on my reputation, and I don't like anything.
And in looking at income revenue, did you have any place in there for town municipal source of funding in here? Was that something we had?
That they paid the insurance, and that was all the funding we got, other than manpower
Last year?
last year.
For this year's estimated.
I did not, because I wanted to be open to whatever number, but I was, I had been reached out to and asked to come forward with an exact number and provide some substance, and it was based on some of the things that I budgeted that I mentioned at the beginning.
Thank you.
Um, Yeah, one question is, parking over there is a perennial problem. And I'm curious to know if you've had any conversations with the Legion about the time that you're going to,
So last year,
post
we
this event.
We did, and they had a change of leadership. And they did not want to work with us at all on the event, unfortunately. We're hoping that will be different this year. I just want full disclosure. But that's why we were looking at, creating a map for this year, because we do have more time to show where all the municipal parking is, whether it be in front of Sully's, or if people want to park at the library lot once they're closed. We're working on confirming that people can park where Vanderburg used to be, and that other parking lot. Sherry's been working on that. One of her coworkers had a family emergency, so she was stuck at work. I don't think she's here, right? Yeah. Somebody showed up all of a sudden, and the other two people on our committee have the flu. So therefore they are not coming to make us Germany, but I know it's an issue, and I discussed that with Shannon earlier today. I had been given some misinformation on how to start in working with the school district to see if we could maybe have a van that can rotate from the different car lots, or if it's, if we're thinking that if there's gonna be enough attendance that they can even park up at the high school or the grade school, and they can get shuttled down. I know that the insurance for the event starts at the beginning of the parking lot at Cross Point, because Sherry did verify that with the insurance company. She said that, or the insurance agent said that anything from the North Cross Point would be town or school board insurance. And so I haven't spoken with the school board yet, but it's something that I plan to do. Reach out to the superintendent and the school board to see if we can get something like that, because I believe if we can, it will make the attendance go up, because some of the individuals who feel like they have special needs, or, just can't don't have mobility issues and can't make the walk all the way from Vanderburg to North Cross Point, will go if they feel that they can get there easily from parking their car elsewhere and getting dropped off. So parking is absolutely a concern, but I'm already trying to come up with ways to make it easier for anyone to attend.
Now. Any other questions from the council? Thank you. James?
I would like to make a motion to approve in the amount of $2,500 for the With the Heritage Days to go towards the Heritage Days on July 26th, 2025.
Take a second.
I'll second.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm wondering if we should make it conditional on getting the approval of the historical society, or that they agree to be the fiduciary. That's what they're gonna do. Now, when we have some more information, like structure to follow, or, in this area.
Yeah.
Okay, I am on the board of directors of the Historical Society. And while I'm not an officer in the Legion, I'm a member and I'm close to some of the officers. I think that I should, according to the rules of town council, I feel I can vote on this issue without any undue influence. However, that may not be the public's perception, so according to the rule of the town council, I feel like I should ask council for permission to abstain from the vote.
You don't need permission, you just abstain.
That's
You
fine.
wanna ask us not?
And that's
Would you
completely understandable.
prefer that I
Andy.
abstain? Does anyone object that I vote?
No,
Okay.
objection to be voted.
We're clean.
So you're voting.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion? Well, there's been a motion and a second to approve the funding for the Winter Heritage Day in the amount of $2,500 under the conditions that the Historical Society accepts as fiduciary agent. Correct. All in favor? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. And if any of you want to provide guidance, attend meetings or whatever, please reach out to me and I'll make sure that you're included. If you have ideas on things that you'd like to see there, please reach out to me because I'd like to help you have your visions for the event met as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, so we have another fiscal year funding request from the Friends of the Coffee Watershed. Jennifer Peasnall.
Yes, this is Jennifer Peasnall. I'm the Director of Conservation with the Friends of the Topsy Watershed. I want to firstly say thank you so much for having us here to chat with you all. I also want to introduce some of the people in the presence here as well that we are partnering with. We have Michelle Delisle, Vice President of Maranico Lake Association. We have Carol Branning, President of Anabesico Lake Improvement Association. And then we also have Mary Beth and John Stanek from Havasu Lake Association in attendance here as well. So for 2025, we are requesting a total of $20,450 for Friends of the Havasu Watershed, Maranico Lake Association, Anabesico Lake Improvement Association, Havasu Lake Association, and Barry Dexter Wilson Lake Association as well. With this request, it is a little bit higher than we asked in 2024. However, there's a few different reasons for why we're asking for a bit of an increase from last year. So one of the reasons is due to inflation. As we all know, prices are going up for a lot of material costs. That does affect us and our work within the watershed as well. We're also due to the increase in Maine minimum wage, that is also impacting our costs across the board for our wages for seasonal workers. We do rely pretty heavily on seasonal workers. We employ up to 30, sometimes a little bit more than 30 courtesy boat inspectors who work within the watershed. We also employ 6 plant surveyors to work on plant survey efforts across the watershed. We also employ 3 plant controllers to work across the watershed as well with management, and we employ 3 surveyors to work specifically on Havasu Lake for the most part during the season. We also are facing some different management challenges going into 2025. So we are actually working with Anabesico Lake Improvement Association and with the Maine Department of Environmental Protection to pursue a possible herbicide spot treatment for Anabesico Lake due to the challenges with managing variable leaf milfoil, especially in the surface use restriction area and some other parts of the lake as well. We believe that this will be the best management practice for 2025, and it will help us manage the infestations that we find thereafter with spot removal using our plant control crew. This, however, will be a little bit more of a cost than last year. Last year in Anabesico Lake Improvement Association, Anabesico Lake, we worked with New England Milfoil, which is a contractor. That cost, I have it in my notes here, was about $26,400 last year. However, for an herbicide treatment, in 2021, the herbicide treatment on Anabesico Lake was just shy of $50,000. It was $49,680. This year, with rising costs, we expect that to be quite a bit more than $50,000. Some other challenges that we have moving forward on Havasu Lake. We have found an increase in Eurasian watermelon oil in terms of the spread. So not really the amount, but just the spread of Eurasian watermelon oil, which is one of the aquatic invasive species that we do manage. We did find a little infested area near the Ladies Delight Lighthouse at the north part of Havasu Lake. With that, we know that we need to do we need to employ more divers, dive time to do some dive surveys, which again is a little bit more of a cost. We're gonna again be working with the state in terms of rapid response for efforts to control Eurasian water milfoil. However, we did find a larger variable leaf milfoil station in Cobbossee Lake as well that we are going to need to contract again with New England Milfoil. This is the first time that we have contracted with them to work on Cobbossee Lake. The Department of Environmental Protection has contracted with them and has been able to carry that cost for Eurasian water milfoil, but for variable leaf milfoil, since it's not under rapid response, we will be paying and working with New England Milfoil to manage those infestations there on Cobbossee Lake with variable leaf milfoil. We also did discover at the end of 2024 a new invasive species. So what we have discovered in past years, we have discovered Eurasian water milfoil in Cobbossee Lake in 2018. In 2018, we also discovered European frogbit in Cobbossee Lake. And also we have found that in Cobbossee Stream as well. And we also know that there is a variable leaf milfoil infestation in Anabessacook Lake, in Cobbossee Lake, and in some of our other water bodies as well. In 2024, we discovered a new invasive species of swollen bladderwort. That does not impact Winthrop waterways at this time, but we are monitoring and assessing that infestation is on Pleasant Pond at this time. But that's something that, of course, we're going to need a little bit more survey and management efforts to work with that invasive species, which does increase costs for us at the present. So that's my my update with 2024 and kind of what we're looking for in 2025. Does anybody have any questions?
Just have a question the next time, those who need to. No, well, yeah. We've been putting towards this to eradicate it from fear in our communities. Seems like it's listening to you, so it's continuing to grow. What is the percentage? Are we not getting ahead of the money that we're putting towards this to eradicate it and try to slow this thing down? It sounds like we got another 2 more invasive milfoils that now introduced to our waterways. I mean, I'm happy to donate. I use the water, so I love it. I think it's important, but can you kind of explain to me what have we gotten rid of versus adding and actually having it go, not eradicating it down, levels down to certain percentages versus having it just continue to keep growing, you saying they find more in other areas. And I feel like that you got the boat inspections happening, and I know Cobbossee's always big, he's got a lot of bass tournaments, and they got a lot of people coming from a long ways away, coming to get doing it. Is that do you think some of this, is that what are they not catching some of the plant like that's catching some to other states that are coming here? I'm just trying to understand those a little better.
Questions. So to tackle the first question that you asked, so we do aim for eradication. That is our goal. We try to aim high, and eradication is a very, very high goal. That being said, we are still hopeful that with Eurasian water milfoil, the reason why it's still in rapid response with the DEP, there's still a chance of eradication. So again, that is what we aim for. However, it is very, very hard to eradicate an invasive species, especially once it's been introduced and establishes in a waterway. So we also work with active management. So for places like Anabessacook Lake, that has a very long established variable leaf milfoil infestation. It's been around for fortunately more than 10 years at this point. We work with consistent and strategic management of those areas. So even though we're still aiming for eradication, that is still our goal, it's very, very hard to do. And so one of our management techniques that we utilize is just consistent management to try to keep the infestations as limited, as small as possible to reduce spread throughout the water body, but also to other water bodies. So we're very, very lucky that here in our watershed, we only have 3 lakes with infestations. So that's Anabessacook Lake, that's Cobbossee Lake, and then that's Cobbossee Stream Pleasant Pond, that waterway as well. We're very lucky that Marinacook Lake has no known infestations, and we try to keep keep it that way through our courtesy boat inspection program and our early detection efforts with our plant survey team. The same is true with Barry Dexter and Wilson. They are known to be uninvested at this time. We're very, very lucky to work with Barry Dexter Wilson Watershed Association. They have a very robust volunteer survey team as well. Many of our other water bodies have very robust survey teams, Havasu Lake and Anabesic Lake Improvement Association. So we're very lucky to have those volunteers that are very passionate. So we do work with those early detection efforts, and really prevention is the number, that's really our big focus to try to keep our uninfested water bodies from being infested or from an introduction of a species. If it is infested, we hope to find that infestation as soon as possible so we can start management. And then unfortunately, where there is an established infestation, we work with different management techniques to try to either, again, full eradication, but we certainly try to minimize the infestation and keep it manageable so that there is very limited spread with motorized vessels.
So do you think, though, there's anything attributing to that, again, it's not a plant like this in Maine, and are we getting other plant life or invasive plant life in the waterways that are already invested in?
Yeah. Sorry. Oh. Yeah, another really great question. So one of the big modes of transportation for these aquatic invasive species is through boat traffic. It's not the only mode of travel. Birds, wildlife, things like that. Water currents can also spread these invasive plants, but we do know that motorized and non-motorized vessels also make up a large part of the spread of invasive species and introductions to new waterways. So that's where our courtesy boat inspection program of 30+ seasonal staff is really integral to us preventing those infestations and catching them. One really great example of this actually from 2024 and just showing the success of our courtesy boat inspection program. One of our inspectors actually found a different invasive species, curly-leaf pondweed, before it entered into Kapunawagan Pond. So Kapunawagan Pond is known to be uninfested at this time, and that courtesy boat inspector found that plant before it entered into the water body. We're still going to be doing, we still have plans to do a pretty robust survey on Kapunawagan just to make sure that there is no infestation. But what it looks like is that CBI was able to find that plant before it entered in, and that's just one of the many success stories with our courtesy boat inspection program. We unfortunately are a very vulnerable water body. We get a lot of recreation, which is awesome. We love to see that. But that also means that we need to have very robust prevention and early detection efforts across our watershed. Absolutely.
2 questions or 2 points of comments. So the first, what I guess makes you feel that herbicide is successful this go around? Is this a different target, plant receptor or something, or what's different this time?
Yeah, so this is the second herbicide treatment within 5 years. So we had one about 4 or 5 years ago in 2021. That was also a spot treatment for the SUR area. I believe overall. So we do have sorry.
This would be the third treatment, right, for a different, in one place, but for an investment.
So Cobbossee Lake has had a few different herbicide treatments, and again, those are spot treatments, and that was targeting Eurasian water milfoil. So that was with coordination with the Department of Environmental Protection. They're the permit holders for the herbicide treatment, and so they work on areas, and they only use that on areas in Cobbossee Lake where the Eurasian water milfoil infestation is either a little too large or difficult to manage with manual removal efforts. That's divers in the water pulling those plants. If that is not effective, then the Department of Environmental Protection might look at an herbicide treatment for that area. It's also for areas with high boat traffic where there is more of a risk of spread and introduction into new waterways. So Cobbossee Lake has had a few different herbicide treatments. What we have seen from many of those herbicide treatments is a really high effectiveness of that herbicide treatment. So again, one example of that, in 2023, there was an herbicide treatment in Cobbossee Outlet. So that outlet there, that's between Cobbossee Lake and it leads into Cobbossee Stream, which then leads down into Horseshoe Pond and then into Pleasant Pond and out through Gardner to the Kennebec River. So that herbicide treatment in Cobbossee Outlet, that was targeted towards Eurasian water milfoil. We were really concerned of that spreading down further into Pleasant Pond. And we found that herbicide treatment was super effective. We did not find any regrowth in that area. So we're hopeful that
That be in a remediation, what's the?
in that,
Seeing.
yeah.
And see any of these herbicide treatments, disappointing to me.
Yeah.
In seeing the successful or not successful, I have no idea. I know that it does go off a large, aquatic species. And it does result in a lot of nitrogen in the lakes. So I really been trying to get like, where you guys want to do this and why.
Yeah, absolutely. So in terms of the data, so we actually are trying to put together, we have some interactive maps. And really just a struggle is finding the time to update those and keep those updated through the season. But that's something that we're hoping to have back on our website that should give some information on when management took place. So when an herbicide treatment, for example, took place, and if we found anything following that. So that should hopefully help with kind of giving that interpretive data to the public. The state does have also information there as well. It would be on their website. I'm not quite sure if it would be on a dashboard or if they have, I'm sure that they also have some written articles on that as well and how effective the herbicide treatment is. But that is something that we do keep track of.
So that kind of brings me to my second question, or concern, I should say. Is all of these organizations, all of these separate organizations that receive funds based out of, this one request is, and you might not be able to speak to this. I don't know when you're the director of conservation, Matt, Bill, is he the chair or do you have a chair?
Yes, so we do have an acting executive director who is here with us today. That's Keith Colling. He's here in attendance. And then we also have a president. Our president has, I think, officially changed from what is written on the letter just due to a personal matter that he had to step down.
Can you educate me then on the structure of the organization, what's different like associations?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So we work within the watershed. We were started in 2001. We work watershed wide. So we work with the health of all of our water bodies, primarily focused on aquatic invasive species and plant management and prevention. So we work in partnership with our lake associations. We hold the permit for removal of invasive plants. So we're the ones that are really, we're on the water, doing that management, the pulling of Eurasian or variable leaf milfoil, working with the state on creating those reports of what we find. We also work with a lot of volunteers. So again, those surveyors that I mentioned before, we work with to coordinate survey efforts on different water bodies.
So how does each approach, or how does the delegation for each different association get determined? So what is the structure? What is who oversees and makes these decisions?
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Add that on there. So just looking at it, I mean, for Cobbossee Lake, you mentioned that has significant things that you need to do to it over the next year. So there's only been a $1,600 increase in your request from last year. In contrast, you have Anabescook Lake with a $1,750 increase. But I know years ago that they did a big treatment down at the south end of the lake, and then since then they've now relocated the boat ramp to the north end of the lake to help defer any of that growth. And so with all those efforts that you're trying to put towards Cobbossee, why more toward the Anabescook than Cobbossee?
Yeah, great question. So we do work in partnership with all the lake associations when we talk about the town funding. So yeah, I actually sit in with those meetings as well. I chat with the presidents of the lake associations or a representative. Sometimes it's a few different people that I chat with from the lake association. And we actually together come up with an amount that seems fair. for the town, but also for what management and prevention efforts are needed for each water body. So it is done in partnership with each lake association. It's done in agreement with full support from both sides. And to your question about why Anabesicook might be receiving more of an increase than Copsey Lake Association, for example. So again, when I chatted with Copsey Lake Association, that's what we agreed on was an increase. I think it was don't quote me, but I believe it was a 12% increase from each town that we asked funding increases for. So again, it was in partnership with Copsey Lake Association that we decided on that increase. And for Anabesicook Lake Improvement Association, since there is that herbicide treatment, which is going to be a lot costlier than having New England milfoil do some work in that lake for management. We decided to have, we agreed with them for a little bit more of an increase.
Did you have a motion to comment?
Yeah, but I had a couple.
Can I just make a comment?
Yeah, go ahead.
The last.
Ma'am.
You have to come up here if you want.
Carol Brandon.
You can't hear me?
The people online can
Sure.
share.
Sure. I just want to make a correction. Last year, Anabesicook received $3,000. And this year, we're asking for $3,750. So that's the increase, $750.
But I'm looking down below, it says Friends of the Copsey Watershed, 7,000 to support their people on invasive variable leaf water level from Anabesicook Lake.
Right.
In addition to the 3,750 to the Anabesicook Lake Improvement Association. So that would be $10,750 total to Anabesicook.
Okay. So
So that's an increase from the $9,000 that you received last year, up to $10,750 this year.
okay, so the point is that there's other work that's going to be done on our lake this year. And the amount of that, the cost of that, we're estimating, this is from DEP as well, between $80,000 and $90,000. So we're not asking for that, we're asking for a little bit more.
I was just asking where the priorities come in, when we start talking for Friends of the Copsey Watershed overall, when they talk about their Copsey, there seemed like there was a lot of different things with Copsey Stream, with Copsey Lake, and then I didn't hear as much about Anabesicook. That's why I was just asking about priorities. When you start looking at the funding and how it's separated out, it just seems like more goes to Anabesicook Lake. And I know in the recent years that the movement of relocation of the boat ramp was supposed to help with the treatment and the cell.
No, that's not the case at all. Moving the boat ramp, was moving the boat ramp away from the major infestation area in our lake. That is a surface use restriction area now because of the implementation of that through the Department of Environmental Protection and IFNW. That continues to be an infested area. And after the herbicide treatment, it was almost gone from that area. The problem with the reoccurrence has to do with people still taking their boats in there, despite the fact that it's illegal to do that. People still entering the lake with plants on their boats because we can't monitor 24/7. This is the reason that this continues to come back. This is like a chronic illness, and the only way that we can treat it is to continue to stay on it.
And also just to add with, so after the herbicide treatment, the Friends of the Copsey Watershed, our plant control crew is going to be monitoring these areas that receive an herbicide treatment. We're going to be reporting back to the DEP on the how effective the herbicide treatment has been in those areas. And we're also going to be doing some spot removal with our divers too. So we won't just have the herbicide treatment and just like let it go. We will be doing constant monitoring of those areas, and we will be doing some additional management there too.
And I look forward to looking at that online interactive map that you're talking
Yeah.
about as well, to see how much that decreases, to get some of that data.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Well, did you have something?
Yeah.
No, I haven't gone. A couple questions. I was just talking to Anthony now. I mean, if you limit boat traffic for a year, not limit the whole boat, but just limit these tournaments for a year, you don't think that that would potentially help restore some of these areas?
That's really great question and suggestion. I think it could, but since recreation is such, these water bodies are such high value areas for fishing and for recreation. And we want this to be accessible to the public. We certainly don't want to limit traffic. We don't want to limit these recreational opportunities. And it is really difficult to limit boat traffic and limit fishing tournaments and things like that because these waterways are for
Well,
natural resources.
No, I get that, you know, everybody wants recreation, but the question is, you know, if it's still gonna be infested more and more and more, there's gonna come time when you guys are gonna have to potentially look at that. And I think, and the other thing is there any way of imposing fees when somebody pulls up to these boat ramps and they've got a weed on the back of their boat? That is, you know, immediately, in my opinion, before they even get there, they should be taking this stuff off. And
Exactly.
is there a way of imposing a fine on these folks when they're just driving up to the lake with their weeds on the back of their boats?
Yeah, so that is actually illegal, by main law.
It is illegal,
Yeah.
but you know what? The
Yeah.
thing is it's happening. And I guess the question is, you know, is there potentially, you know, a way of doing spot checks at some of these boat ramp or these boat launches with potential send them out and get fines. I mean, I don't know, you know, you're gonna have to deal with this at some point. And if it's getting worse and you're getting this other thing that's appearing, this other type of weed, I mean, in my opinion, you gotta do something I think that's gonna make some of these folks think twice before, you know, a deterrent, because otherwise you're just gonna, you're, you know, cutting your hand off to spite your face. I mean, it's a recurring thing. And unless you know, really put your foot down on some of this stuff. If I was to get a $500 or $1,000 fine, if I pulled up to a boat launch and I had to pay that, I'd think a little bit twice before putting my boat in there with a weed or cleaning this.
So there's some good news on that.
I mean-
So I do know that, IFW is putting more resources towards having wardens, check for those sort of things and enforce, that regulation. So that is something that I know IFW, and the DEP are looking to put more energy towards and more resources towards. So that is something that I hope.
They're
that
putting
we
more
see
resources
happen.
towards it, but what I'm saying is you put your foot down, you say, you do this, this is what's gonna happen. When it hits people's pocketbooks, then the light bulb goes on.
Yeah, right.
I mean, to me, it's, you're not gonna curb behavior, I think, until you really, what? I think it's a great idea. I mean,
Yeah, and I'm sorry, also to kind of talk, to your point as well. So our courtesy boat inspection program, although we don't have any legal power and we can't enforce those things, we do educate. So that's one of our, primary, efforts with the courtesy boat inspection program is to educate boaters.
can the
on-
town impose fines or fees or something on that?
That's.
Only if the law allows us, and I don't believe
Yeah.
that it does.
It doesn't?
It does not. That is something that
Okay.
is only enforceable by game warden.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the police force for IF&W.
Well, we may have to change that.
The problem is that last I checked, admittedly a few years ago, there was one warden for every 7 lakes in the state. And that only accounts for, you know, just how can you get them to enforce it? It'd be great if you could, but.
We have a couple last questions, no more.
Yeah, let's-
So, I know we talked just a few minutes ago about the recreation piece of it, and, we've also spoken about in last year as well as this year about the fact that, there's a potential that, the big tournaments and stuff either stir up the lake or bring stuff in. And have you looked at imposing, is there a fee with these tournaments to the lake association?
That is a great suggestion. At this
Because
time.
there's a huge
Yeah.
concentration of boats coming from all over the place.
Yeah.
We need to the water,
Should have mandated
Yeah.
inspections.
Is there?
So there is, and that's another, in Maine law, it is required that they do have, inspectors, for any fishing tournament. And they are supposed to be inspecting and checking. I'm also working with the DEP, to make sure that we have, CBI coverage there, even when there's a tournament. That's something that we're gonna be looking into doing. We're gonna hopefully do if we have those resources to provide so that we can have some additional, inspections and coverage while those fishing tournaments are going on. At this time, there is no fee that I know of, that goes to the Lake Association. Please feel free to let me know if I'm wrong on that, but I don't believe that there is, but that is certainly a good
We
suggestion.
asked about it last year as far as being that they're certainly stirring the water up, cutting the milfoil off, let it float away, or bringing it in from far away. So that's something that I would be interested in seeing myself.
That's
correct. There's a lot of boats, and if it was a fair fee for them to continue doing it instead of shutting them down, I don't think it likely would be an issue. But it would be a source of funding so the communities around don't have to cover all the costs of all those boats going
Yeah.
Yep.
far away.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I would probably have to look into if legally we could do that, but yeah, that's certainly an avenue to look at.
Can you provide the numbers from the other communities? I mean, Winthrop is, right, we have a fair amount of lakes here. We have a lot of lake frontage, but there are also other communities in the Cobussy watershed district on these bodies of water. Do you also get funding from them, and how much do you get?
Yeah.
I'm looking at this pie chart in the back. And it says, this aquatic invasive species program budget for $325,000. Well, the town funding shows 13% comes from 13% of the 325, I'm assuming,
Yes.
comes from towns. Well, that's $42,250, it's 13%. And we're getting asked for 28,000 of that $42,000. The rest of the communities are not getting asked for more than that.
So we are asking, so we are asking for Winthrop, since there are so many water bodies within Winthrop, it's kind of the central part of our watershed. Unfortunately, the ask for Winthrop is a little bit higher than our, the other towns.
What other towns are asked for money?
Yep, so we asked, and I think I might need to ask, Carol, Carol, do you have the spreadsheet on? Yeah, so I'll just have her bring up that spreadsheet. We do have a spreadsheet that has, all of the town funding requests that we asked for, throughout the years. And
Yeah, bill number, yes, bill. What's the bill number? Bill
I think
number.
Axel might have sent that, Anthony Wilson, I think that was an email, I believe I might have sent that spreadsheet. I might have emailed that spreadsheet as well.
My concern is, this is flat rate.
That's gross.
The fact that much of the gates closed. A lot of the other stuff that showing.
That's it.
One second of one year.
All right.
Got installed.
Okay, so we ask, in addition to Winthrop, we do ask the town of Monmouth, Litchfield,
How about, do you have
Greenfield,
the amounts?
and I do have the amounts.
Maybe we'll put
I believe this one actually is from last year. This one does have so last year, I can tell you what we did receive in 2024. I at this time don't have the 2025 spreadsheet with me. However, I can certainly email that over to Anthony Wilson and make sure that you all get a copy of that as well. And that also shows what our 2023 town funding request was too. So in 2024, we asked the town of Winthrop for 24,000. Monmouth, we asked 18,900. Litchfield, we asked 14,700. Reedfield, we asked, but did not receive all 4,387. We didn't receive 1,500 of that amount, just because they have they require a petition to be signed by residents for there to be a town funding increase request. For the town of Wayne, we requested and received 1,500. West Gardner, we requested and received 14,300, Manchester, 14,000, Richmond, 6,500. And here I actually have the 2025 potential ones as well that I can give you. New this year, we are also requesting a funding request to the city of Gardner as well. Would you like me to also give you the 2025 funding?
You can just send it over in an email.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm seeing here is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we're looking at the $325,000 budget. 13% of it is town funding of 42, comes up to 42,250. I'm looking at those totals right there, and two of those totals add up to significantly more than 42,250. That's quite a bit. I mean, are these the figures that make up that 13%?
So they are, I can also send over that spreadsheet, like where I got those numbers from. So that amount, was based, again, it was is an estimated budget, but it is based on what our budget was in 2024.
This is more than double that amount, dude. Just about double, if you do the quick math.
Just last year.
What's that?
And last year.
That was, yeah. But I'm just curious as to how the numbers add up. They don't.
Those Lake Associates, 40, that's a big,
Yeah.
quick 14.
I could
I'd
certainly.
like to see some more
Yeah.
information before I'm.
Certainly. Yeah, I can send over what those numbers are, because I do have that spreadsheet as well that made up the pie chart, so I
Yeah.
can certainly send that over too.
Okay.
Any other comments from the council? Sorry, motion?
I'd like to make a motion to table this till next meeting.
Second?
Second.
All in favor to table this until next meeting? All in favor?
Are they?
We'll table this tonight.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
They're private.
Right, moving on to item 32, consideration of allowing the
So
Palace
we
of
can't
Millville
ask.
Cat
You
Special
could ask.
Shelter.
Wait, can I just?
Yes.
I'm curious, some of these organizations, I know they're private organizations, but would we be able to see kind of like the finances and what you actually spend on some of these?
I'm sorry, are we looking for the pie chart for the private donation?
No, well, just like the Friends of Cobussy Watershed, I mean, are we allowed to see their financials, to see, and like the same with the Cobussy Lake Association? Are those,
So I can't speak to the lake associations. I know some of them are designated 501c3 nonprofits, and they do put their financials out there. I can't speak to the other lake associations, though. I do know that we, as a nonprofit, we do have our financial records available.
So are your board of directors made up of those other
So we do have
organizations?
We have representatives from different water bodies, so some of them are involved in their lake associations. Some of them, for example, Kathy Bogan, who is actually stepping into the role of our president. She lives on Cocknowagan Pond, but there is no lake association for Cocknowagan Pond. But we do have representation from all across the watershed.
okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
If you come up, yes, please.
My name is John Stanek. I'm not a voter of Winthrop, but I am a taxpayer. We bought our land on Horseshoe Island in 1987. We camped for 10 or 11 years while we were building our cabin, which we now use seasonally. We live in West Gardner, directly across the lake from our camp. So when we're in West Gardner, I look at my property in Winthrop, and when I'm in Winthrop, I look at my property in West Gardner. And sometimes it seems a little close, but I'm on the board of the Cobussy Lake Association. My wife is Mary Beth is treasurer. We spent the CLA spent $126,000 supporting lake health last year. And our budget, that I don't have the amount, but when we come back, I will have our amount for 2025. It's much greater because of what we're trying to do. I'll second Jen's comments on managing the invasives, and it's not all speaking just for myself, that's what we can do. There were questions about the boat tournaments or the bass tournaments. There isn't any one member of any lake association that wouldn't like to limit those. It is not anywhere near in the realm of our power. It is all IFW. Yeah, that'd be great. The CBIs are one of the most important things we can do to protect our lakes. And Copsey being in the special position of now having Eurasian water milfoil, we do not want it to go to any other lakes in the state. And that's why we're spending so much more than what we're asking our five individual towns around the lake supporting the Friends. The CLA is doing absolutely everything within their power as volunteers to do. This year, we've hired a what we're calling a lake manager. He'll be on the lake not 7 days a week, but a lot in his own boat, just being a presence on the lake, especially during those fishing tournaments. Yeah, it's all the lake associations are doing everything they can, and I can tell you from as a taxpayer in West Gardner, but the ask went to over 15,000 this year. And then there's one other thing I wanted to talk about. Well, when we come back for next week's weekly?
Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly. Well, we're gonna inundate you with information.
Great. Have you, you mentioned the fact that I'm assuming you guys have spoken with them
Oh, yeah.
about, have you specifically looked for any sort of ruling that you can do through?
That would be all state legislation. I can tell you, I have gone to the State House to advocate for several of the bills that Representative Hasafus has put forward. Myself and others have testified at the State House in support of the legislation. He's awesome. And I can tell you that on Cobbossee, or in the Cobbossee district from IFW, we now have a warden that'll be present, on our lakes in whatever the district she covers. Her name is Rose, and yeah, I've met her. She's great.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanley.
Thank you.
So time for a little more public comment. It is very brief. We do have a lot more still on our agenda, and we did table this, so we will be bringing this back on March 17th.
Okay, I may not be able to be here March 17th. I just wanted to make the councils aware that last year we had about $10,000 in CBI costs for our lake. And that was for 3 days a week, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and holidays. It's a very expensive program, and understandably so. Yet there's a lot to cover. It's not just salaries. There's a lot of costs involved in it. Because we got some grant money from DEP, and because we got some money from the towns, we were able to reduce that cost, and we still paid $4,000 from our dues. And as you know, not everyone who lives on the lake pays dues. And luckily, we have people who do donate extra, but this is why we asked for money from the towns. Also, last year, we had a survey bill, which was actually given to us as a request. And that was $1,000 in survey costs. And plant control, actually, that's not quite right, but it's close. And plant control donations, the total cost of plant control was $35,000. We were fortunate to have a $20,000 grant from DEP and our town funding of $12,000 that went to Friends of Copsey Watershed because they were the ones providing the service, and it still left $3,000. So altogether, we gave $3,687 to Friends of Copsey Watershed and $4,000 for CBI. So we are coming up with quite a bit of money on our own. We're not asking for the town. We're not asking the town for all of it. So just, I wanted you to understand the numbers, and we are a 501c3 as of last year, and working hard to fundraise for what's gonna cost us about $80,000.
Thank you very much.
Just gonna say, we need that. If we're gonna make that decision, to be able to bring, or to make sure that we're representing the fact that we're willing to spend tax money, we need the information.
70% of the people who live on Anabesic pay taxes to Winthrop.
Correct.
We asked the same amount to Monmouth, even though they have far fewer taxpayers on our lake. So I don't know what information you want. Nobody has ever asked us for all the specifics, but I'm happy to inundate you with the whole thing.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. All right, item 32, consideration of allowing the house no kills cats out there.
An adequate comment.
What's your final comment?
Thank you, Pat. My final comment is that there's been a lot of to and fro here about baths, Mr. Brennan, and bath tournaments. Anyone wants information about that, they simply need to look on the IFNW website. They'll find out what the rules and regulations are, and they'll find that they're all strictly regulated. Okay, it's really not just a bunch of yachts cruising around the lake.
Oh, that was-
That boat.
That wasn't the implication.
Right. Item 32. Consideration of allowing the house no kill cat shelter to use the Marine Lake Beach on weekends for the 3rd annual Kitten per month.
So moved.
Any discussion? All in favor? All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes,
Yeah,
good luck.
Thank you very much.
It was very cold last year.
Yes.
Have a good night.
So Shannon, I just texted Elizabeth Peters and she's not able to be here tonight, so we can table that or just skip it and move, and we'll put her on the next agenda.
What do we,
Yes, yeah.
are we just doing authority to solicit sponsors
Uh,
and run the concerts just like we have in the previous?
yeah, if y'all want to do that without her being here.
Just do it.
And consideration of granting authority to Elizabeth Peters to solicit sponsors for and run the concerts at North Cross Point for the summer season of 2025.
So moved.
Second.
We will not have sponsors now.
I don't know.
It's likely the same sponsors.
Oh, yeah, I just didn't know. We were gonna jump in, right?
No.
Okay.
All in favor?
They've always gotten their own.
All in favor? Item 34, discussion and consideration of order 2025-03. A request to transfer $44,967 from the tennis court project fund to the Winter Sports Committee and
got it in the-
have Steve's here at the podium. Ready to take any questions or comments from the council?
Well,
I have.
I guess I got one quick question, Jeff, and obviously this is it's there, I had to ask. Tennis courts completed, right? That was the project, this is kind of no brainer for me, so I say you transfer the money, that's
We had
it.
$300,000 when we started the project. This is the amount of money that was left over when we finished.
Makes sense to me.
And so we just want to get it over to the sports fields committee so we can start the next phases. The biggest thing right now is that sports fields last year redid our field and we owe them $6,000. We don't have any money to pay them. And I would like to keep that bill paid because my name on it.
Yes, yes, so a couple questions, thank you for coming out. So the Winter Sports Field Committee, just refresh my memory, this is
The turf field.
the turf field in that project.
Yeah, it's that project.
Yeah, you're sort of part of
I'm
that,
a part of that.
you're on the board. or
Yes.
committee.
Yes.
Okay, and then who's the president of that, Joel?
I think it's Joel.
Okay,
Yeah,
and so we've got an update.
yeah, we're a 501c3.
Yeah, I want
And so we've got a bank account and what we just want to do is transfer that money from that account, from the town's account to that account, so we can start paying bills and
Do you have any sense on where they stand or where they're with phase two?
we were supposed to meet last week and it snowed out and I think the 13th of March is our next gathering and our architect was coming to start talking about some costs and we're getting ready to kind of kick off the next phase. That's all I know is that nothing has happened on phase two, correct?
Actually, have you heard any, from anyone in a while, no recreation committees? Town recreation committee, no, you know?
Nope.
No, and we'll be in touch then.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'd be nice to get someone from that.
As a price, that's why I've been.
Yeah, and I know you've been doing
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, just a quick question, as part of that, this committee, the sports field, the complex committee or whatever it is, are they now going to be responsible for like the maintenance of sports? Is that part of that?
No, that stays, they're still the towns. They're still the town's tennis courts.
Okay.
Yeah, that's not changing more.
So I guess my question is, instead of transferring all of that money, is it possible to keep?
We put $5,000 a year into a, what do we call it? Capital improvement. Capital improvements, we put $5,000 a year in that capital improvement. So when the day comes down the future, when you're gonna need to do some repair on the tennis courts and stuff, that money's there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I piggyback off that a little bit, Brian? What are your thoughts on you keeping this in your fund, but then withdrawing as needed? So you said right now there's $4,000 that's needed. Oh, sorry, 6,000.
Then
Or you're just wanting to like just move it all
I'd
over?
just like to get it moved over there so we don't have to, bits and piece this as
And
we
then it
go.
goes right into the committee, right?
Right, and then they can start using it for, well, to pay for our architect when he wants to do some work on it and any of the next projects that we start to, we're gonna need some money to do some seats for fundraising.
Because we get it to the school, right? I don't know how that works. School park like that, everything over there, the field, it's all run through the school.
Yeah.
They have a budget item for a budget for that, You don't know you want to.
I mean, they have to have some maintenance cost on it, I mean.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're comfortable, it's your.
I'm comfortable with it because it's not, it's money that we don't utilize.
Yeah.
We budget money for the tennis courts
So
every
once
year.
it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, but
Okay.
I'd rather see it get out there and get used on something so we can get the next stage of that project.
Right.
Can we see what this is gonna be used on? Like, I mean, they need to come back, in my opinion, and tell us.
Well, I think it's phase two is what they're gonna use. They're gonna put it toward the bottom or.
Yeah, towards getting the track, towards getting the field, the baseball field up and ready to go. We did that, they did some drainage maintenance down there, there's a significant amount of drainage work this spring already, or last fall already. And so, they've done a lot of work and we've had no money to pay for that work. So this would be paying some bills off more than anything else.
Bonnie, being the new kid on the block, can you help educate me? These funds were originally fundraised privately.
No, this was left over from a grant.
Tennis court.
It was left over from a grant and
Was the grant from a private foundation or the state or?
I have no idea. I just remember being told we had $300,000 to rebuild the tennis courts.
So I'm just wondering if these are public dollars, if the council needs to maintain some sort of oversight of them. And additionally, I would also note that while we may be raising and appropriating $5,000 a year for the capital reserve for the tennis courts, we could reduce that amount by hanging on to some of these dollars for the future maintenance of that, including a resurfacing at some point in time.
Sports Fields Committee?
Yes.
Joel and I just talked about that,
Well,
because we talked about this a year ago.
so,
And I had thought that we had been to the council to talk about this and it had been approved once, but Anthony seemed.
We talked about it, I don't think, I think it was within the update, I don't think we, the last decision I made was money to fix the stuff out at the beach,
Yes, and then I think we use some of the funds for the fencing around
Yes.
that one ball.
Yeah.
was this a state grant or a?
I have no
Well,
idea.
the only reason why I'm asking is if it's a grant, you gotta be careful of how you're spending the money. Because you don't know if it's
It had to be
a,
done on infrastructure. And that's
But,
what- that's
but
what we're
I'm just
looking
saying is somebody needs to look at that grant because you don't want to get in a situation where you've spent money on something and you don't have the authority to do that. And I am not gonna go back and,
at. I have no idea
so
where
to
that
me,
came from. I was-
somebody needs to look
I
at
was
that.
just told I had the money
Did you, were you told from the school?
from the town with, the town manager. Escaped from the town-
Do you know if
Yeah,
that's?
not this one.
Oh, this, no, this one.
Well, I'm just
Right.
suggesting before this is in any way, shape or form, before this is used, somebody has to check that. Because you don't want, again, you don't, if it's a grant, there could be some, stipulations or something that it can only be used at. It could be infrastructure, that's fine. But- Yes, I'm fine with that.
You can sort of, I'm not, that feels like. It's not a huge test. We can move it legally on I'm in favor of it. One more question then. Did you, real estate? That would have been the recreation land, right? You're managed. I saw they were doing a lot of work on it. In the fall, lately. Do you have any idea what? That was the
That was the drainage.
That was the drainage, so that
Went up, see,
I would, and that was,
Well,
that was $6,000?
Wow.
Is that the $6,000 it's due?
No, it's.
That was for redoing the fields.
Sports Fields came in and redid the field after the last time we done it. It washed out again. And so they redid it after that, and now it's washed out again. So I mean, in the spring, we're gonna have them come back in and do it again.
Yeah, you saw.
I mean, and so the drainage has been fixed, so now that's not gonna happen.
reoccur.
I mean, the field hopefully is gonna be
Exactly,
used.
still. Where do you, what do you see here? Yeah. What do
The
you see?
skate park is, the skate park, my hope is that eventually, when the whole project gets done, that will be parking.
Parking, okay.
That'll eventually become parking, you know, much better uses of that. It's already used for parking.
I would say just come back with something and.
On any Friday night you wanna get down to a football game, that's used for parking.
Right, yeah, I know,
I mean, it's already being utilized.
I would say it's just.
Is there anything else? The item on the
I'll make a motion, but someone needs to check that grant to make sure that, yeah, conditional, yeah.
Okay, so if, we can be real clear about what the condition is, so we can get this right in the minutes.
That we're able to use the money. Yeah, if it basically, it gives us the authority to use it for a transfer to, yeah.
I mean, I have no background on where that grant came from.
We'll find out, Bonnie, and.
Okay. I mean,
We'll find out.
Town agent, so sending it over,
Yeah.
it's a really good grant, I think, for them, as long as, again, it allows us to. continue to
Recruit,
invest.
approve the transfer of 44,967 from the tennis court project to the Winthrop Sports Field Committee pending.
We'll just say, as the motion's presented, contingent on whether
Yeah.
that aligns with the grant stipulations.
Yep.
So there's been a motion to approve a request of $1,967 from the tennis court project. So the sports field committee contingent on the item.
Okay.
Any discussion? All in favor? All in favor?
Thank you all.
Yeah,
See you in the spring. See you in the spring. Jim, did you end up putting about the wash pit the other, with the celebrations?
Oh, yeah.
I got stalled.
No, you did?
I got right in the middle of that.
No, I stayed moving so quickly.
I went not quick enough, I was not have your quickness.
They let him up beat.
All right, moving on to item 35, discussion of capital improvements for the following town departments, Public Works and Ambulance Service. So thank you for Kevin Doyle for your attendance as well as Chief Bustow. You in the audience.
You see you.
We see you. Do you want to come up and explain your new ideas?
Kevin, come on up.
Are they both?
Yeah,
separately with both, yes.
It'd be-
and this is in preparation for capital improvements for our budget.
Anybody bringing the tomatoes?
See it. Okay, so, first, let's open it to discussions. What do you guys have for questions? All right. Go forward. Anything? Okay.
Oh, how things going? Yes, I'm just breaking the ice.
It's been a busy winter.
Yeah, well, I want to just say publicly right now, I think that the downtown and sidewalks are probably better than I've ever seen when I've lived my whole life, so, thank you for that. You guys have really kind of kept these sidewalks cleared off, so you don't have to step over a sidewalk to enter a business or except in there, and I think that looks great. And you got been in a lot of different towns and that's a lot of them doing it, but I think that looks great, so thanks.
It's an effort by everybody. Yep.
And we also saw that the roads just got posted this week, so excellent job getting all those signs up, I've seen them everywhere.
So the capital improvement. I know it's up here. Capital improvement audit. So I've been talking with both paving contractors and different equipment manufacturers and all kinds of different things for the CIP. And there's a lot of stuff to be put into it. And I know that we're not gonna be able to do it all in one year. So it's a plan, right? We have to put a CIP together. One of the things that I've been doing is talking with Hunter Falwell about the roads and what's been done in the past. When I got here, there wasn't any information about what's been paved in the office, so I'm piecing that together. And Hunter's been integral in helping with that, so I'd like to thank him publicly, he's not here. So the capital improvement items that I would like to go over, there's a few. One of them is the paving. So I'm a believer in keeping what is in good shape, in good shape. Pick away the stuff that's bad. I don't believe in throwing bad money or good money over bad items. So my idea is to go with surface preservation this year, because I really haven't had the time to look at what this town needs for infrastructure improvements, right? I mean, I got here in October and it's been snowing since. So, I need some time to do that. I would like to take this spring to do that. So in the CIP, I would like to put money into it to do surface preservation. And then look at, crack sealing this summer. I know that's never been done in the past here. I don't know why, that was a decision that was made. But I'm a believer, I've seen it work. I know it works.
I got a crack on the Hathaway Road that needs to, pulls all the way across the road.
Well, and that's the thing, and you know, if you think about it logically, right? Water gets down in the crack, pieces and thaws and pieces and thaws, and that's the cycle that deteriorates roads. All right, so if you can keep the water out, you're better off. There are other things, and I can kind of lead into that, that I'm looking at as far as equipment needs, right? So the trucks that we have are in pretty good shape. We've been able to tinker them back up this winter and keep them running. I think we can get a few years out of them without any major issues. I don't see any big issues with any of the equipment. We have some minor things here or there, you know, you're always gonna lose a cooler or a line or something like that. But as far as I can see, the equipment isn't in too bad shape. I haven't had too much. I haven't put too many eyes on the excavator or all the stuff down in Anabasco yet, because obviously we're not using it right. We've got to focus on what we've used. One of the things that I want to bring to the council is I'm going to be looking in the CIP budget this year to put in computerized burn systems in the trucks. If you're unfamiliar with what they are, I'll explain it in detail to you individually if you'd like, or I can do a presentation on it. But basically what they are is right now, we're spreading material in the road and have no idea how much we're putting down, because all it is a knob in the truck that goes click, 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 click. So you don't have any idea of how much material you're putting down. We could do a calibration, we could weigh the material out and do a calibration, but it's still not gonna be accurate because they're not ground speed orientated. Excuse me, there's two types of springs. There's ground speed orientated and ground speed activated. Meaning when the truck starts and the unit starts spreading, that's when it's spreading. Ground speed, it starts when the truck starts. Ground speed orientated means regardless of how fast or slow the truck goes, it compensates for the speed of the truck as you go. So for instance, if you want to put down 300 pounds of salt per mile, you dial up 300 pounds, and regardless of how fast or slow that truck goes, it's always going to do 300 pounds per mile. Because if you speed up, the chain speeds up. If you slow down, the chain slows down. So when you're going up a hill and you think you're dumping 300 pounds a mile, and now you're dumping 300, 500, 700, 900, 1100, and then you go down the other side and it's 1100, 200, 100, it's not accurate. You don't know what you're getting. Right? It's not efficient. You don't have consistency. We need the consistency. We also need to be able to see where the material is going and how much we're putting down, when we're putting it down. These systems will do that. It's come a long ways from the old click, click, click knobs. And they did great for a long time, but listen, you're not still driving a Model T either. You look at these trucks now and they're very sophisticated. We need to update the systems that are in them to be able to save money and save time and save effort and save energy and save things like, you know, I read it tonight, there's a lot of water in this town, a lot of lakes. Where is this stuff going? Right, how can you improve it? So these systems will do that. They do save money.
What's it called again?
Well, they're computerized systems, they're computerized spreader systems, but there's different variations. There's 6 or 7 different companies that make them. One of them, Cirrus, there's Force America, there's Muncie, there's a bunch of them. But basically, they all do about the same thing, it's just how they do it. And what kind of material or what kind of tracking do you want? I'll give you an example. In my past, I've used Cirrus systems, and that'll tell you how much material you're putting down wherever you are in town. So if I go by your house and you want to know how much material I put down, it'll tell me how much material I put down. And it'll tell me per storm, per season, per trip. It'll tell you what time you were there. It'll tell you a lot of information.
What's the rough cost? Yeah.
They range anywhere from 8 to about 12,000 per truck.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
So Kevin, why don't you talk a little bit more about that? How much are you proposing that we include in this year's capital improvement plan for these systems, and what's the return on the investment?
So presently, I'm proposing it's around 25. Let me look at the number here. Put my Adams splitters on. 25,200 is the quote I got, the 3 systems. And that will save money over about 2.5 years. Because if we go to a salt priority system, which would be more cost effective in the long run, a load of salt right now is around $2,600. So every load of salt that you're eliminating, you're saving $2,600.
And additionally, by doing that, as we've talked about before, it gives us the opportunity to put less sand on the road, which is good environmentally, especially in a lake town, but also it prevents us from spending an entire month in the spring from cleaning sand off of roads and sides of roads. So that's one of the operational efficiencies that you would realize from this change.
One of the things that the state came up with a number many years ago and has been tried and tested over different states, but it's always come back to about the same thing. It costs you 11 times more money to pick the sand up as it does to lay it down. You got sweeping costs, you've got getting rid of costs, you've got equipment costs, you've got everything. It costs you 11 times more money. Plus you have to grade the roads more often. You've got to pull the shoulders. There's a number of things you have to do that have to weigh into that. So I'm proposing that we do this in stages. So the first stage would be to put in these computerized systems and start the benefits of that right off the bat. The next stage, and that would be what the comfort level is of the council. The next stage would be to be putting in, the truck systems that would give us more opportunities. So right now, we use no liquid at all. So let me give you an example. 1 pound of salt will melt 46.5 pounds of ice at 25 degrees. 1 pound of salt, 46.5 pounds of ice at around 25 degrees. If you lower that temperature, even just 7 or 8 degrees, that same 1 pound of salt will only melt 14.5 pounds of ice. There's a huge fluctuation there in what the system will do, the salt will do for you. The problem we have is that we don't have anything to liquefy that salt, because that's what it is. It's salt brine. The crystallize itself doesn't do anything to give you some traction. It's when that stuff grinds up and keeps the bond from hacking to the road. If you can spray either salt brine or calcium chloride or magnesium chloride, beet juice or whatever you want to use, if you can spray that salt, it brings the activation rate of that salt, depending on what you use, down to below 0 in some instances. So the salt is still active. You're not using as much to get more bang for your buck. But that's stage 2, because right now you don't have those systems on your trucks. You don't have these computerized systems. You don't have tanks on your trucks, and you don't have any way to spread it. You don't have any mechanism to do that. That would be another, put all that together. My estimate for that, I think, was, and let me look, around 37,000. But that would be brine tanks, that would be everything, right? That would be having to put a system together to put it in the garage.
Per truck.
Nope, well, for all of it.
Is that including the cost of the liquid spray?
Yeah, that would be cut, for the first year, that would include the cost of the liquid.
Oh.
Yeah, now, there are places where you can buy it, have it brought and put it in a bulk tank, that we purchased the bulk tank, and, you know, there was one down there, I don't even know if it's any good anymore. There's different options here, right, and we're gonna go with the most cost-effective option and what makes the most sense in the long run. But I think these things need to be looked at going forward, because it's gonna save the town money, effort, environment. There's a lot of benefits to it. Now, there is a cost. Nothing is done for free. But in the long run, there's a reason why every large community is doing, even smaller communities now are doing it. They're investing in these because they see the benefit of it. And I believe when I looked at the numbers on it, and don't quote me because I don't have the number here in front of me, but I believe the outcome was like 2.5 years. So it really wasn't bad. And the reason I went with doing 3 trucks is right now we have 1 truck that has a basic system in it. So we might just be able to retrofit that. I will leave it a little more. But even putting it on just 3 trucks is going to save you a huge amount of money. So that's.
Yeah, but with that, you have to, everything you use in spraying to wash it out or get.
Yeah, you flush them.
Flush the whole thing.
Yeah, so basically what it is you would empty the tanks, you would empty the system. And then you would just run, we used to run windshield washer fluid through it. That's all it takes.
Get the stuff.
It's an RV pump for the liquid.
Yeah.
For the computerized systems, there's no flushing at all, you just wash the truck down. So basically what it does is there's sensors on the chain. And it's attached to the hydraulic system, and it speeds up the chain and slows down the chain up to 11 times per second to give you that balance of speed versus, and it's all GPS. It tells you where everything is, what's going on. The state's been using it for a lot of years. A lot of times we use them. There's all kinds of information out there on. If you're not using it now, you got a question as to why.
So if we can, maybe just talk about, I'm sorry, Roy.
Quick question. What other towns immediately around us are using?
Other towns, I
Are you like
mean,
using anything like that?
no, but he's looking into it also.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that, I think Litchfield uses it, Gardner uses it. In fact, a lot of contractors now are finding it in their bid spec. but they have to have it, even for stuff like the main mall and things like that. You know, these bigger places, they're putting it in their specs that these guys have to have computerized systems because they want to know how much stuff they're putting down, how much stuff is going into their bases, how much stuff is going into the yard.
Yeah, same what we still.
And so one of the reasons I wanted both Kevin and Chief Bostel to talk to you today is our next meeting, we're going to be talking about capital improvements and we need some guidance from the council on this. And so
I just was wondering, have you, going into that next meeting, have you seen, have you had a chance to look over what the capital improvement, traditionally? Okay.
well, and that's where I was going. So with the pavement preservation that Kevin has talked about, we're thinking about $500,000, which is what we've sort of budgeted over the last few years for pavement anyway. However, if memory serves me correctly, maybe some of you can help refresh my memory. I think we actually budgeted like $700,000 for pavement last year because we were making an even bigger investment.
We didn't pay year before, so we had a lot of carryover.
Right. And so if we did 500, if we earmarked or appropriated $500,000 in the capital improvement plan for pavement preservation. And I like Kevin's plan with this because, and Roy will recall this from his interviews, but he's familiar with the, Kevin, what's the name of the software? RSMS, and what does that stand? Which will give us an idea of how we need to go about improving our roads based upon computer models. So it'll give him a chance to actually employ that tool to do a good assessment of our pavement, maintain the good roads that we have right now, so that a year from now, we can come back with you with an even better plan of how to attack those roads.
Yeah, so what is
That big one you talk.
No, that's the power system, but that's all different than you're not buying one of those, that's.
I know. They won't let us use it.
No. Basically what this is, and the guy that designed the system, and don't quote me, but I think he lives in Reedfield. I've been in contact with him through email, and he's willing to come help us with this.
That's cool.
But RSMS is a system where you survey the roads, right? And when you look at a road, if there's a book and it'll show a bunch of photos, right? And it'll say, if there's cracking on the road, what does it look like? So if it's itty bitty little pieces, it's called alligator cracking. If it's long, it's longitudinal cracking or you know what I mean? So you put those numbers, they equate to a number. So you put those numbers in, the ditches full of materials, the culverts in bad shape, or you know what I mean? All these things go in there, and then it pops out a number and it tells you from 1 to 100 where this thing sits. So the road you live on might be an 86, and the road you live on makes it 64. 86 means we really gotta do it right now. So when you got 64 is the road we're gonna do, because the way it works is Hot Top has a life expectancy. So let's say it's 10 to 15 years. When 75% of that life expectancy is extruded, that's when you should resurface that. That's when you do the preservation of it. Because what it does, it brings you back to that 10 or 15 year range. If you wait to 75 or 80% of that road structure is undermined, then it's gonna cost you 5 times more money to fix it. So for every $1 of hot top you spend at 70 or 60% gone, you get $1 hot top. If you wait till 80% of that road is gone, then you're gonna spend $5 to get $1.
Does our contracts, with,
Allstate.
thank you, Allstate,
They're working with us. We don't have to worry about that. So let's talk about $500,000 for pavement preservation. And then if we did either one of these things that Kevin has talked about with the computer systems or the brine equipment, we could do that, and we could do both of them for less than what we spent on pavement this past year. So it's still sort of within our budget.
What is the amount? We signed a 3-year contract last year with all states. What was the amount we signed the contract for?
You're pressing my memory on this. I'd have to go back and look. But again,
We need to. Be global.
but again, Allstate's working with us on this. I mean, we've talked about it, and Hunter was never as you know, because you sat in on his interview. He was never comfortable with the way that we did this. He understood why we did what we did, but didn't think it was the best way. And so what we've actually talked about with Allstate is the possibility of, once Kevin does his assessment next year with his RSMS software, is coming back to you with the proposal of what it would take to bring all of our roads to a baseline level from which we could then really engage in more pavement preservation, as opposed to just, putting hot top on top of a bad basis. And so what that would likely involve is financing of some sort, and a general obligation bond. But those are decisions that are a year away from now. And so I'm not at all concerned about Allstate working with us on accomplishing what we believe is right and what they also believe is the right approach for our roads.
Sure.
Well, it probably will. I mean, they've had our business for a while because they presented us with the best bids.
Seeing some. It's also being discussed.
So we can talk about those right now, because in the operational budget, which I sent to you guys earlier today, when you look at the Public Works Department, you'll see two big ticket items. One of them is investing $45,000 into our current Public Works garage, and Kevin can talk about what that would do for us as far as that facility is concerned, along with, I think it was it $25,000 or $30,000, Kevin, for $30,000 for the street sweeper?
Streets.
That new?
No,
Okay, let me look.
I think you guys spent that money. Let's see, Apollo. Right now, that unit is up to the dealer being serviced, so it's ready for spring. Because when I looked at it, there was some broken water lines, there was some airline stuff. So I sent it up there and we spent a little bit of money on it, whatever it is, and it'll come back and be ready to go. Because that's an expensive piece of equipment. You bought that thing with a grant because you couldn't afford to buy that. You've had to take it off the budget.
Just mom.
We share it with mom, yeah. Yeah, so that's one of the items that we share with mom. So, Tony, the plant is the public works director over there. I've known Tony for many years and we work very well together. And I'll give you an example. He lost a tire on his trackless this week. He called me up, took one off, I brought it over this week, he get it home, and then he brought it back. So we're doing a lot more stuff with that. You know, if I have to run up to pick up a part, I call him, see if he needs something on his way, he does the same thing with me. So
Yeah.
the communication is getting better between the towns.
So-
It's established with him very well, but we're gonna stop meeting out on the others too.
So I see what's happened with this $35,000 expense on this budget. You guys have helped me tonight. It's actually supposed to be $3,500. So so that number got fat fingers. So we'll be able to reduce this proposed budget in front of you by 30-something thousand dollars. So Kevin, why don't you talk about the Public Works garage and why you're.
Yeah, so, I don't know if any of you have, when was the last time you guys were in the Public Works garage? Have you been in there in the past or two? I know you have.
Sure, so
Yeah, I mean, we did a tour of it with the council last year.
It's a little rough. It's that's the kind way of saying it.
Today.
Yeah, it's a kind of way of saying, we're almost to the point, we are to the point where we've outgrown that facility. Because we're having to store stuff down at Tabasco just to keep it warm, because they don't want to leave the stuff outside, can't leave this outside. So that in the next few years, that is something that has to come to the table. How you guys do that is gonna be your call. But I'm gonna present it to you as this is what the need is. You know, it's not a want, it's a need, right? Right now, we need to upgrade some systems. I just spent about $5,000 bringing the code in the garage. And that didn't do everything we wanted to do. That just changed some circuits, replaced some things, and fixed some stuff that wasn't there. We have a bathroom in there where you gotta lean to the right when you sit down, you're gonna fall over and it's gonna come with you. So there are things that need to be done. Now, we've invested some money in the heat pumps, we've invested some money in the lighting. That's all gonna save us money in the long run, right? Especially the lighting. But we need to update what's in there now. The bathroom needs to be updated. The break room that you have is, it's a small break room. It's also got the hot water tank in there and a shower that's not used, and you can't put the whole crew in there at one time. So, it's very outdated and antiquated. I would like to see council put some money towards at least bringing that building up to an acceptable standard.
How much space do you have dedicated to office in crew area in that?
Right now, we don't, it's just the break room that they use to have their lunch if they're there.
Okay,
And then upstairs, there's a small office, I think it's 10 by 20, but that's where the files are and all that stuff. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to expand that out to the edge of the stairs. If you've been out there, you'll know what I'm talking about. If not, please come by and I'll show you.
my question would be or my thought would. We have no golf ball going down this town property. I don't think it gets used anymore right
We
now.
can't do anything with it because what I found out this week, because I was using it as a snow dump this year.
Right,
And I was told I can't do that, so we stopped doing it.
what about putting
It's
a
still utilized
portable
that way.
well, is what I'm thinking.
You can't, my understanding, and I haven't looked into this, it's just what I was told by some people. But my understanding is the field was donated to the town
Okay,
as long as it's used as a ball field. If it's used for anything else, it has to revert back to the family.
is there any area that around you see like a portable building, being able then to retrofit the space that you have to be able to store more equipment?
Don't know if there's land enough, and the reason I say that is because I don't know what you're up to right now for impervious surface. So that could be the hurdle that you're up against right there. And there's some different conversations we can have about that, but.
Okay.
Yeah,
Isn't that bay there, what, you talk about the break room, when you're speaking of the break room, are you speaking of that whole bay where you walk upstairs in the office?
Downstairs underneath.
What is that bay used for?
that bay is used for repair mostly. Yeah, I mean, we store a pickup in there at night.
Okay,
But like today, there was a truck in there, we were looking at, fixing it, that we do cutting edges in there, while the big bays are being taken up by the big trucks. We'll bring the trackless in there and work on that, we had the loader in there last week, we're changing fuel line on that.
one other question I had was, you talked about crack sealing. Are you gonna be looking at crack sealing, the equipment to do the crack sealing?
No, this first year, I think we'd have to contract it out. And I'll be honest with you, I'm thinking, just driving around town looking, I'm looking at like maybe $100,000 for crack sealing. That's a lot, so. But again, we gotta look at that and see where we are, right, where does that fall in with the preservation?
What, would it be wise to look, instead of spending $100,000 on crack sealing for a contractor, if we're gonna continue to do this in the future? Would it be wise to look at equipment now and?
It would, but I'd like to see what we can get done and what we can do. What the longevity of it is, I've had conversations with other towns, Monmouth being one, and Tony and I talked about if we buy one of these things, we could buy it together.
Right.
Because we would both use it. So it's one of those pieces where it could be shared, so you're cutting the cost of it right there.
Yeah.
So I've discussed that with him, but I think for this year, because there's no time to really get into that right now, that equipment has to be ordered. I think I'd like to see what we can do, how it works for us. Right, I know it works, I know the system itself works, we did it all the time at the jet board. I've been in other communities and states where they do it, it's effective, it works. But it's gotta be done correctly.
Question that's been on this council for a while is the investment in the building. And the use of it. And I know you're storing things down there.
So, as a reminder, we're talking about capital
Yeah.
projects here. Okay,
It kind of, it alludes to that,
okay.
so.
Okay.
Because they're talking about on with the building down here. Is there something you may be able to utilize down there for storage and load in and maybe debate you're talking about for servicing, maybe make that into an upgrade from convert something down here. Have you thought maybe to make a bay down there to be the service bay, or we do cutting edges or do regular maintenance in that building?
The problem you have down there is, the logistics of it. And what I mean by that is when you, I don't know if you've been down there before or not, but when you drive in, there's two buildings. It's a building on the left and a building on the right. Left is where we keep spare vehicle, the fire department keeps his stuff there. There's different equipment apparatus in there. The other bigger building, was used as a pump house, I believe, when the state was doing things. So when you go in there, it would have to be completely revamped, because when we bring equipment in there, we have to wiggle it around these posts that are this high, made of concrete.
Yeah.
There's steps this high that are, all over the place. So it would have to be redone. And then the issue is, you'd have to have the base going along the front of the building when you first drive in and look at it. And the problem with that is that's where your septic system is right there. So if you drive in there right now, there's a big spot of grass, dirt, whatever it is, that's your leach field. That's the septic system. So that would have to be relocated to be able to put bay doors in. And I don't know if that's possible. That's the thing.
I answered my question about the building. Continues report, get rid of it.
Well, the problem with getting rid of it is where do I store everything that's in there now, right? I got an excavator in there, I've got a tractor in there, I've got a sweeper in there, these are all big pieces.
Yeah, we shouldn't get rid of it. We can find use for it with all that stuff. I mean,
It's usable to other space. I just don't know how usable.
Yeah, but I mean, it's still-
Yeah, it's the first part of it, in there, that first part of it's flat, they get you up midsection, they take a sweeper. It's all no ropes or anything that first, like I said, there's one pretty good little bay that's right in that side back door coming in, but anyway, we can talk about it later.
When you first drive in, there's two
Yeah,
big.
thanks.
So just so we're clear, are you guys comfortable with $500,000 for pavement preservation, including in the budget? Plus the two items that Kevin talked about that equal, somewhere in the neighborhood of $62,000.
I just want to look at everything before I mean. I like these two items down here, the computerized systems and the other things, because that'll save us money, so.
Yeah, well, and to be fair, there are other needs, but Kevin, like you said, we can't do everything all at once. And so these, he thinks, are the top priorities. And so, for instance, one of the things I asked him about was, and you guys recall that we talked about this last year, was the, was it the brush hog, or what's it called?
Right, so a mulcher.
Mulcher head. And he says, yeah, that's something we need, but these are higher priority needs than that. So that can sit for a year.
Right, and that's the thing.
Well, wait a second. Wait. Councilman Weymouth just made a claim here that is a half truth. So what we're proposing to do here is actually involve a reduction in the amount of capital money invested in public works than what we did this past year. The budget is up this year, largely as a result of wages. However, the projected increase in dollars, not as a percentage, but in dollars of revenue, actually at this moment is eclipsing that increase in expenditures. Now, that's right. But at the same time, as I said, what we're proposing right here, if you guys are comfortable with, actually is a reduction in what we budgeted for this current year.
Yeah, I want to see everything. Yeah.
Let me just leave you with this. I think we need to, my hope is that you would look at investing some money into the garage to at least bring it up to a standard that would be acceptable. One of the things I looked at, and I had a local builder who would not be bidding on the project. That's why I used him to give me a quote. Get committed, and I asked him, how much would it cost for us to bring that office out to the edge of the stairwell and then drop it down so that the break room and the bathroom are separated, but they're at least usable. Right? And yeah, I think it came to around 35,000 is what he gave me for a quote. And that's just, you know, that's not changing out the bathroom, but it's maybe changing the toilets with other walls.
Yeah.
What if we should be doing that prior to?
Well, it's in the operational budget this year. It's in the proposed operational budget. So it's in the Department of Public Works budget under building maintenance.
Needs to be done. So
So that's, what I'm saying is that's separate and apart from what we're proposing for capital improvement.
thank you.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
And so Chief Bostel actually has a PowerPoint presentation. So what I'm going to do is
Do you need that or?
no, I got it. Yeah, I got it here. So I'm just going to share the screen. And so Chief, if you'll just let me know when you want the slides advanced.
It's difficult. I said, out here.
Yes, and you do have a printout there in front of you. So I'm gonna.
Let's dead move on.
It was like 9, 8.
Oh, my
Yeah,
gosh.
oh, I did.
Given the longer
Sorry.
stories.
I know.
All right.
I've never been questioned.
So I know Kevin has a lot more experience at this than I do, so I should start off with, do you guys have any questions? That's what he did.
I do have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Last year during our budget discussions, we talked about extending the life of our vehicles.
Yes, sir.
We asked about some sort of rust proofing on the underside of the vehicles to stop the corrosion or slow it down. Has any of that been done?
That was not done this year, no.
Okay.
But.
We just
but-
had that
but-
conversation.
But we're proposing all new ambulances this year, so that's not really gonna
We
be.
just had that. We just had that conversation.
Oh, my gosh.
That one over, because I.
Yeah.
With the fire department.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Because the rust is a killer of the vehicles.
I need Chief Bostel to start this presentation.
Yeah, just do the.
Okay, next slide, please. All right, so Medic 3, I'm gonna start off with Medic 3 because that's the oldest ambulance in the fleet. So I included this picture here. I don't wanna read the slide to you, but it's a 2016. It is our only diesel model we have. It's sitting at 150,000 miles. You can see what our current maintenance budget is at right there, 80%. And really what two different ambulance suppliers told me when I had them give me a quote, if we were to trade that ambulance in, they said between $8,000 and $10,000. That's the value they gave that ambulance. Okay. Now, the picture I give you here, this is one of the rear compartment doors, which is what we use to take patients in and out of that ambulance. And you can notice there's a little patch in the aluminum plating. Now, this ambulance was on a call with a patient in the back and the door would not open. We had to take the patient out through the side of the ambulance. We took the ambulance to our mechanic here in town, Lance, and he crowbarred, there's a little red emergency release switch on the lower right-hand side of the door that you can see in the picture there, wouldn't work. Crowbar, he did everything he could think of. We had to call the ambulance manufacturer who sent people in to cut a panel in the door so they could release it. Couldn't get a patient out of it, had to take them out of the side. I thought this was an important thing to share with you
Did they
guys.
get it fixed?
So it's working right now. I mean, the door's open, but that was the middle of a call. And thankfully that patient wasn't in such bad shape. We were able to get them out through the side door. But I mean, that could have been catastrophic.
That also could happen to a brand new ambulance.
It absolutely can. And I brought this, I specifically had this for a reason, just because I think it's important to talk about it.
Yeah.
Let's go to the next slide real quick. So Medic 1, this is the other ambulance that I would say we probably need to consider getting rid of. This is the second oldest one in the fleet. It's a 2018, 134,000 miles. You can see their maintenance budget currently at 85%. Proposed to increase that next year as well. And again, they said it's worth about $10,000 if we were to trade this one in. So this picture here Typically, the floors aren't this dirty, but I left it that way so I can maybe make a point with this picture. The floor there is collapsing. So this stretcher, this is one of our Furno stretchers. It weighs 275 pounds without a patient on it. When you put a patient on this, let's just say a 200-pound patient, you're now lifting 475 pounds. The way the floor is starting to collapse in the back of this ambulance, when you go to take that bed out, the crew member actually has to lift those tires to get them over that little yellow, I guess you'll say warning area, to let you know that you're coming out of the ambulance. So we're lifting that from a very high position just to get over a little bump because the floor is starting to buckle.
Why is the floor buckling? It's only how many years old?
That's a great question.
6, if
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, why is the floor that doesn't sound right.
Right, I agree. Kind of like having to cut the door panel off so we could open a door. Our newest ambulance, this weekend, I had to have PVC come down from Rumford to cut open the main oxygen tank door so we could change our oxygen. That's our newest ambulance.
These are all AEVs.
These are all AEVs, yes. The other thing that plays into this, I know remounting has been the norm here because it's cheaper and we can usually prolong the life of the ambulance box. The problem you run into is, are we purchasing boxes that are meant to be remounted? So when we start looking at ambulances, there are, I can buy a Fiat or I can buy a Cadillac. And typically the manufacturers make those boxes that are higher end are meant to be remounted. I use Augusta Fire as an example. They use Braun ambulance. The Braun ambulance is meant to be remounted 2, possibly 3 times. That's a $400,000 ambulance. We're running, I believe when these guys were new, probably 165, maybe 185. They just aren't meant to be reused. That remount process, you take a new chassis, you take the box off the existing ambulance and set it on a new chassis. Most of the inside, they touch it up, but it's not usually completely done. It's just a way to try to extend the life and save some money. But you gotta spend money to save some of that money too. Like some of these boxes just aren't designed for that. And I think that's part of the problem we're running into with the fleet here. I don't think they were actually designed to be remounted over and over again, like we've been doing.
Well, are we purchasing the same type of ambulance then? If this is, I mean, this is. only 6 years old.
He's getting to it.
It's a great question. We can actually go to the next slide.
So hold on, I have a question. Going back to Medic 3 and Medic 1, you make a statement saying the maintenance budget. What are we doing to maintain these two? Say, we'll start with Medic 3. What are you doing to maintain that now? You're saying it's gonna increase to $6,000.
Yep, so a big part of our increase is that our local shop, Lance Rennie, he closed his business. And Lance worked on fire engines and ambulances and his shop was closed. In the interim, we went with Rebel Trucks out of New Gloucester because they do a lot of traveling mechanic stuff for first responder agencies. It was too much money. Our maintenance budget was not high enough to cover the cost of having them come up to us and do work on these ambulances. Yeah, it was just too much. And they came up, they did an inspection on Medic 4. They found that the rear camera wasn't working right. They didn't like that the rear backup alarm sometimes would cut out, so it failed its DOT inspection. So they ordered the parts, they came back up to fix the problems they identified, and then they charged us for another inspection. I wasn't happy with that. They came up and did some brake work and they left. A month later, we started having problems. I called and I say, hey, the ambulance you just did the brake job on, we're noticing some issues. It's pulling to the right. And they came up and they said, oh yeah, we did the brakes, but the hoses and the calipers, they're sticking and they need replaced. So now we went from a $1,700 brake job to a $3,500 brake job. And that's on Medic 2, our newest ambulance. That's at 35,000 miles. And so that wasn't realistic. So I started looking for shops here in the local area that could help us out. And we started using Hash Auto and Refill. And he's been doing our maintenance moving forward, probably since beginning of December. And so we typically, Lance Rennie, who does work for us, when he comes in, he works 12 to 24 hours a week.
Yeah, it should be, Lance is one of our EMTs as well.
Yep. So when he comes in, he kind of goes through the fleet, he makes little notes for me and he says, hey, we need to do this, or this is coming up, and we have a board in the station and he writes notes for me, and when I come in, I schedule things as they pop up, basically.
So like on Reddit 3, I mean, this is calling a novice person about going about vehicles. 150,000 miles on a diesel motor, it's not a whole lot of miles. Even on the whole chassis itself is not that extreme. What are we doing to maintain that truck to get to the level to increase it by $6,000?
So tires every year,
Sure.
tires, a brake job.
But even tires will go to 60,000 miles.
But, oh, I'm sorry.
Even tires will go 6,000 miles, and a brake job should go probably, I'll ask the real mechanic over here, what, a brake job should really go, but you should be getting probably closer to 10, probably 20,000 on brake pads. So for me, you just quote the high end on brake pads, the $3,500 brake job, do calipers, brake lines and pads, right? So that, you get a set of tires, it's gonna probably cost you, 6 tires on the whole thing, could be around another $2,000, so it's all $5,000. That's, and then you got oil changes and all the other tidbits that have to go with that, right?
Yes.
So when you say at 80%, I'm just trying to do the math in my head. So, it doesn't feel like the value of the trade-in is not a whole lot, because if you trade it to a dealer, it's 8 to 10. They're gonna ask 20, so they're gonna double the money on the truck, so. This is my
It's
thought.
still being used at that point, right? If they're gonna give you $10,000, it's still gonna be used by another community.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I think those quotes are super low, and I think we could probably sell them for significantly more money ourselves. Now, I'm not in the used ambulance business, so I can't really speak to what I would do with that, but to me, that's an absurdly low amount of money.
I guess my question comes, if these gonna go into use in another community,
We should just keep them.
don't they still have some useful life that we can?
Value.
Yeah.
Useful life here?
Yes, so I absolutely think they have
Yeah.
value. As a matter of fact, I will say that I reached out to Mount Vernon Rescue and talked with them about the possibility of, if we do decide to get rid of a couple of these, maybe we could float one over to their community. And there's a couple thoughts behind that. One, we respond out there for lift assists. That's a 40-minute response if we go to the far side of that community for someone that might not need an ambulance at all. But we're the ones they call in the middle of the snowstorm, and we send that ambulance out there, and they might not need to go on that call. And if we can provide our surrounding communities a tool like this, along with the training to use it, that's a good community service, right? And yeah, it might be leaving this community, but I think it would still help our agency be available for calls in this community. And I think that's important. So while I think reducing the fleet here by getting rid of our 2 oldest ambulances in hopes of getting 1 new ambulance that will cost less money to maintain and hopefully last us a little bit better and maybe be built a little bit better. That's kind of my goal with this, is to say, like, I think we've been buying the bottom of the barrel, and it shows, like, not being able to open doors on calls. That's huge. You can't really see it very well in the picture, but there's a note on the door that says to lubricate that door every month with WD-40. And we do. As a matter of fact, I usually take the gray panel off around the handle and I lubricate the interior workings of the door. And we do that every month. And because we're just trying to make them last. Sure. Yeah, and they're kind of falling apart.
And to your question, Jim, about the $6,000 increase, that's probably where the budget should have been all along. Because the fact of the matter is we simply haven't maintained these vehicles as we should have.
Yes.
And so Chief Bostel is.
Get that, I've been on the council, sure. So we can water, probably it just seems like we're gonna be chassis, $60,000 here to chassis, then I think one was like just over 1,500 something odd and some change, you can buy a new one, and I think we were talking about buying one a few years ago. Yeah, decided, well, do we wanna go with this style, or we wanna go with, you know, transit van, or some different things. We talked about different models of what we were using, and I remember we talked about maybe reducing the thing, because it could outfit, you know, all 4 rigs that we have now, and should we reduce it down to 2 to 3 rigs? So, you know, I get it.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I mean, Steve Bostel has talked about, we don't really need 4 ambulances. We can have fewer ambulances. Maybe what I'm hearing him say is higher quality ambulance. But at the same time, he's been open to some different shapes or styles or of ambulances that heretofore we haven't seriously considered.
Talk about what anyone's cost is proposal from us at Dynamo.
So, slide, Anthony.
Shoot, did this freeze?
Screen sharing.
Well, it advanced just a second ago. Hold on. I'm gonna stop sharing.
What's in the top up there? Yes.
Let me do this again. Oops.
One more.
Was that it, or did I go too far?
So I'd like you to think.
You're
of this.
fine. You're fine.
Thanks. All right, so I want you to think of this slide as two sides here for me. We've got left side, our current supplier, right side, one of the ambulance dealerships that's up in Bangor. So left side, PVC, Professional Vehicle Corporation, they handle American Emergency Vehicles, AEV. They're manufactured in North Carolina, our current supplier. Their customer service has been fantastic in my time up here. This is my first dealing with those guys. They're great. They came down on Saturday and they cut into an ambulance for us so we could change out our main oxygen tank. That's fantastic. Most places wouldn't do that. Your cost for your ambulances, so type 1, that's an ambulance box with a pickup truck cab. So you can see there, 342,000 to 356,000. That's the big guy, right? So when I say Augusta Fire is using the Braun ambulance, that's what they have. Big, huge, they ride horribly, but their boxes are built to last. And they can get usually 2 to 3 remounts out of them, and they're very happy with those guys. But they're a big truck. Type 2 is your ambulance. The van is the one that we've talked about here a couple times, where it is like a Ford Transit van. That's what that quote is for. All-wheel drive, 202,000. The type 3 is what we currently run. Think minivan front with a box on the back. Basically, you're just, when you talk type 2 to type 3, you're really talking size. Really, there's more size in the back of a type 3 than there is in a type 2. So a type 2 is a transit van that's converted to all patients. Autotronics on the right, so that's the dealer up in Bangor. They also do remounts and their own service. That shop's in Frenchville. Their prices are a little bit higher because they deal in a little bit nicer truck. So they're the Braun dealer. They're the one that sold the ambulances to Augusta. So you're looking at 420,000 for that guy. Their van is a Demers. Nice van. As a matter of fact, Demers makes type 3s and type 1s. Very nice product. They do make a lot of stuff overseas in Europe, which is where the vans are really, really popular. And they are just a little bit better quality, right? That's the big difference you're dealing with there. So that's your price difference. It's kind of like driving a vehicle. I'm not really the brand guy. I want value for my money. And where we're currently at is on the left. I don't know if the value is in the money there, especially when you start comparing $38,000 difference to a van. I don't know what kind of value you have there. I know that the Demers are known to last a little bit longer, but I can't speak to time right now.
Well, what is your expectation for the service life of these? I mean, if we're talking, what's that?
The length of time they're using.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking spending, $80,000 to $100,000 more on these ambulances, what kind of timeframe should we expect to get? How much longer timeframe should we expect to be able to run them, and what are we gonna do to make that happen?
Yeah, no, so great question. So I would say that I would expect these ambulances to be able to run 10 years. And I think that's what we're currently trying to do with the fleet we have. But I think that we have ran into some issues primarily with maintenance and things not lasting the way they should. Part of that could be preventative, because preventative maintenance wasn't being done right. It was simply, if I need an oil change, I'll go do an oil change. Don't do anything else. I don't know if that's the right way to take care of your fleet. And I'll fall back on my time. It's not, right? I'll fall back to my time as a firefighter. Every Tuesday, you've got everything out of a compartment and you're working on your stuff and you're making sure that it's gonna work. And how long do fire trucks last? They last a long time because we take pride in that fleet and we do work on it. We need to get that way here. And I would like to say that, we've got to where we're washing trucks every day from 4 o'clock. We're doing things that need to be done, but we're working with old stuff right now, and it's stuff that wasn't taken care of. And so I do have expectations for it to last longer, because I think that there's a little bit better standard being kept at this point.
I would still like to see them undergrounded.
Oh, yeah, I think that's a great,
wise.
Yeah.
Cost to do them. I think it's a wise investment.
I agree. I think that's a great idea, and I'll just apologize that fell to the wayside.
I mean, to be quite honest, all of our trucks and stuff here should be doing all of it, even the salt and everything else. For those bigger, can the dump trucks be?
Fire trucks,
Yeah, all that stuff should be.
well, I think the amount of salt Kevin put down.
Yeah.
We need to do it.
So Chief, if what would you recommend as the best configuration of your fleet?
So when I think configuration of ambulance, especially with where we're at rural medicine wise, I do feel that having the bigger ambulances is a boon to our care. And I'll say this, why I feel that way. I'll use a call we went on Thursday, a patient that fell on the ice, broke their leg. So while the paramedic is starting an IV and providing pain management, his partner and I are able to be at the foot of the bed, removing the patient's shoe and cutting their pants and splinting their leg. In the van, we couldn't do that. It's cold, it's super cold out. The patient's wet, they've been laying on the ground waiting for the ambulance to get there. And the first thing I want to do is leave the doors open so I can access their feet. I'll use one other example here, our head-on collision on 202 a few months ago. That patient had to have traction applied to their legs, they had a femur fracture. With a van, when you apply traction to a patient, if you have older traction devices, do you know how you gotta put them in the ambulance? Do you remember, Aaron? Oh, yeah. You gotta put them on the bed and put them in the ambulance backwards. Because their feet and the traction device hang so far off that you can't close the doors to the van. And that's my biggest concern with the van is that it makes it tough for certain conditions. When you have a little bit more room and you're dealing with a hard case and you need extra hands, it's nice to have that space. With a van, you can only access one side of the patient well. Now I'll say I flew for a lot of years, and there's significantly more room in a van than there is in a helicopter. And we can do a lot of cool things in a helicopter, but you have to do the care before they go in the helicopter. And I think the vans are similar to that. So I have to have a place that I can do good care and good assessment on my patient before I put them in that little box. So I do think that vans prevent some of our care.
So which one on this would you recommend?
That would be a type 3.
So, and just to be, so propose a question out there, we already have, if you're getting rid of these two, Medic 3 and Medic 1, we have 2 other that currently are type 3s, right?
We do, yeah.
We do too.
Yes.
So if we would purchase one as a van model, you would still have the ability to do that and the other 2 rigs. And you have, if you did purchase a van ambulance, you'd have that to utilize for other things.
Yes, sir.
Such as the salt.
And I would say, I believe, like in the past, when Aaron worked for the service, I believe that's what they did then as well. They had a van, bigger ambulances.
We did not use the van, we went away from the van in order to rotate and prolong the life of the type 3s. So getting a third type 3 allowed us to alternate, so
Sure.
putting miles, distributing the miles.
Yeah, I guess just wondering, how much did we, and it's probably deeper questions.
do you do a lot of transports?
Like transfers.
Yeah.
So anymore, we do not.
We did, I mean, that's why the town bought the van originally. Matter of fact, when I got hired to work on the van. And it was because we were doing a ton of interfacility stuff, we were doing, dialysis runs, stuff that dried up. Thanks.
You know, it's interesting, Chief Bostel said something I witnessed last week on a highway or roadway in Finland, where we came upon this wreck and traffic would just stop and we were right behind the wreck and the ambulances came, but once they came, it was a long time before they actually put anyone in the ambulance. And it was one of these vanbulances there in Europe. And so I didn't understand at the time, but what he just said made sense. They were actually working on the patient on the ground or in the car or whatever before they ever removed them and then put them in the ambulance. And once they put them in the ambulance, then they drove away, but it wasn't put them in the ambulance and drive away and work on them at the same time. So that makes more sense to me now.
Looking at the slide that you have up there now, the Tech 3, is that the one we were looking at last year? Or, because last year the discussion was.
Yes.
We were looking at potentially reboxing, new cabin chassis and everything.
So here's what I would say, Roy. New chief, new plan.
I understand that, but it's the same, I guess, it's the same facility, right? Same company, this is our current supplier. And the price, right? The price in last year were $260,000.
I think that was a re-chassis.
It's no, that was like 185 or something like that. It wasn't much, maybe it's 220.
So the re-chassis was 235. That was with reusing all of the, essentially the bed system that's currently in our ambulances. That was to reuse that. If you look at, and I don't know if you guys will have all this, this was given me on Friday by Deb, but this is, I think this was Chief Davinsky's kind of plan out to 2033. One of the things he had in here was a stretcher replacement. So he had that plan for fiscal year 27 at $42,000. That is not enough. So these quotes actually have the new stretcher system built into them. And your new stretcher system, the Stryker bed, which is what we use, and the two Type 3s that we will keep, is the Stryker stretcher system with the Stryker power load. That is a $75,000 system.
The universal for what we're using right now with a new one?
Yes.
So you're gonna get rid of the firm one?
Yes.
Okay. And then, the other question, Horton, are there any local Horton dealers that I?
Not that I'm aware of. Sugarloaf, the other ambulance manufacturer, so they deal in PL Customs, which are close to $500,000 now. And they stopped by and showed me a new ambulance that they're carrying called the Medix with an X. That was $285, not quite ready to go out the door. And I felt like it was kind of a mishmash between a van and a Type 3. And it had a very short roof in it and it just felt cramped. And it just seemed like it wasn't worth the money, because I think it would be very close to these other quotes out the door.
In my experience on it, when I was in the AEV ambulances. North Carolina, that's for us, they're building. Cheap, very cheap. Cheaply put together. Things would break all the time.
Which one?
On the AEV, the ones we have now, we're currently running. And we just have to be so creative to keep them on the road most of the time, and then also we send stuff back to the factory. So I would just keep that in mind. I think I wish there was some way to like pull back all the money that we have spent on these trucks over those years, because I think you would find
Well,
it would blow your mind.
woulda, shoulda, coulda. So,
I do believe there's value in the wrong on trying. That's like the midpoint then, right?
Yes.
So.
and I don't want this to scare the council, because here's the good news. Is over the past 2 years, we've socked away $2 million in the assigned fund balance for capital reserves. And so, we could easily pay cash for one of these things right now if we wanted to. It's just a matter of determining, okay, what are our highest priorities and how do we want to appropriate those dollars in order to meet those priorities and spread them out. So, I wouldn't never suggest we should appropriate all $2 million for fire trucks or for ambulances. But it does give us, it does help us to, we may not have the cover of the puzzle box right now, the jigsaw puzzle, but we've got all the pieces.
Say you. And so that way we'll have a holistic picture of the costs.
So Aaron, is what you're saying is if the idea is to buy something that with the plan of re-chassis at some point, make sure we buy something that's gonna work with. Okay,
Because I know Rick system. It's had some adjustments too, but it's not A to B. So I mean, and I'll say, we never had door issues with that before re-chassis. So I know that, I believe you 100% that the re-chassis is the issue.
Not to beat a dead horse, but I would like to point out, PVC, if we were to order an ambulance from them today, we're 2 years out. Autotronics, somewhere between 12 months and 18 months. So there's a bit of a lead time on those guys. Next slide, please, Anthony. All right, parking lot. So I think these are some issues that have probably been pushed a long time.
keep going. Yeah. Nothing to do with it. There we go. Just keep talking here and I'll get it.
So I was going for visuals here. We're gonna need the next slide.
Okay. There.
So next slide, please. All right, so there's our skating rink.
You could.
And here behind car 10, you can see where basically it's kind of collapsing. And here, next slide, please. Let's hit them all. So this is our gazebo that we built with some donated funds from a family member, of a person we worked on. But that's blacktop that's built on, and you can see an awful lot of green there.
Where is that located?
That's right behind our building. That's where the staff parks.
The generator right there.
Generator's just to the left, yes. So I had Martin Asphalt Paving Service from Monmouth come out and give me a quote. He walked around and he identified that we have some serious drainage issues coming off the hill behind the building. And when you follow the drainage, there is a line that goes underneath the pavement in the back of the building that has probably collapsed. And he's afraid, kind of looks like it's turning into a sinkhole. And we drive over that, the staff drives over that to park every day. And when we have a third ambulance call coming in, we drive over with the ambulances, which are about 15,000 pounds. And so he had some serious concerns about that. He thinks that the pipe probably broke and that there's water draining around that pipe and it's eroding the ground underneath the pavement. He also thinks that's why we have so much water buildup in the parking lot. And so when I had him come in and take a look, he said he thinks the best thing to do is basically excavate the entire site, redo the pitch so it drains better, fixing that drain pipe, resurfacing everything, and that's his quote for the entire project is $99,820. Now, I can say that in 2020, we had a crew member getting out of his vehicle at the station, and he slipped on the ice skating rink and hurt his shoulder and was out of work for about 9 months after surgery. And so I do have some concerns with the collection of ice buildup that we have in the parking lot. But this is one of the projects I think has been pushed off for quite a while. And again, going back to that spreadsheet that looked like Chief Davinsky had been working on. I can see like parking lot repave, rebuild, $10,000. That was his plan for that work. Again, I don't know a lot about paving, but it's a pretty big parking lot.
So how many staff do we have on duty at any one point?
So we typically have 6 of us in the building. It was more when we were running the C-shift truck, but I stopped running the C-shift truck as of January.
So is it possible to reduce the size of the parking lot?
Oh, I think so. I think the big issue we'll run into right now is the way the bay is designed and getting ambulances in and out of the garage.
I mean, that parking lot right there, that looks a lot, much bigger than 6 or say 8 or 10 cars. It was the old health center. So I'm just wondering if we're gonna do something like
Yeah.
that, then we have to repave the entire thing.
You have to remember that the back side, the way the doors are, that ambulance has to come all the way around.
But I guess you
swing
can
it,
do
so
it, you
like
The
that.
ambulance can't drive through the other side, but we could also, that's not a drive-through bay.
from the side of the garage, so
Yeah.
It is a drive-through bay, yes.
we can
You only use it when it's 30 minutes out, right?
The building.
Yes,
So you can't drive through the front side on the, to get out of there?
you could do that, but you have to back into the back bay if we got rid of that, which might be weird.
Yeah, we don't have to use all that parking.
Well, I'm just saying, it's a big surface area. That we're not using it, why, I mean, like, we can excavate it, we don't have to pave the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking to the guy that was plowing it, and I agree with you.
Let's move on.
All right, next slide, please. All right, so the next thing, maybe you've heard of our heat pump woes. So this is my office. This was the first set of pipes to go after the heat pump issues. This was beginning of December. So if you look at the picture on the left, you can see daylight coming in, and then you can see the like blue soffit vent just kind of laying there. We think what happened is when the heat pump was installed, that soffit vent was knocked over and it was directing cold air directly to the pipes that were right above my computer. So I got a call from the crew at about 6 a.m. on a Sunday saying there's a bunch of water running in your station or in your office. And I said, please turn the water off. So that was beginning of December. That's the first pipe break, and you can see the damage to the ceiling in my office there. Next picture, please. This is our medical equipment room. So we had about $9,000 worth of medical supplies ruined for this pipe break. This was a sprinkler pipe. In the picture on the left where you see the damage, I guess both pictures, you can see the heat pump unit right there. So the sprinkler techs that came in to shut the sprinkler system off or to at least plug the system for us, they pointed out that there was absolutely no insulation around where that heat pump had been installed. It was all gone, had been pushed off to the side. So we had a bunch of pipes running right next to it and they froze.
Did we make a claim on it?
We did.
We have.
These are all claims. But I want to try to address, I think,
Yeah.
what might be the root part of the problem after talking to installation companies.
I was gonna say, is the ceiling insulated?
Yes, sort of. In certain parts of the building, yes. I'll answer that better in 1 second. So on the right there, you can see we had cabinets. Those were all damaged by the water as well, so they've just been removed from the wall. And Servpro had to cut the wall up about 2 feet on all of the walls where they weren't able to dry the sheetrock. So we're currently working with a contractor, trying to get somebody in to repair some of this damage. But right now, we just have open walls in a pretty significant portion of the building. Anthony, next slide, please. This was the last break. So this was what used to be the training room. We had kind of turned it into the gym with a plan of making this the town fitness center with part of our wellness initiative. Again, another sprinkler pipe break. So with the picture on the right there, you can actually see rafters and the underside of the roof decking. And we've got some plastic sheeting in place with some insulation to the kind of left side of that picture. The building is very hit or miss with if there's any insulation, if there's any plastic sheeting. The building has been added on to multiple times over the if you climb up into the attic space, you can actually see old roof. It's very interesting.
Have we done a whole assessment of the rest of the building? Make sure that we're not gonna have more breaks?
So I can tell you, I've spent significant amount of days up in the attic adding insulation to soffits. Yes. So we've been trying to address it. We've had a total of 6 pipe breaks since December. So next slide, please, sir.
Did they have heat going up in there before?
Yes. So this was part of what we ended up finding when we started actually looking at what was going on here. So the old furnace system, which the control of that was taken away from us with the installation of the heat pumps, they put locks on the stacks. So we couldn't access them. Dave's Appliance is part of, and this was part of the efficiency main program. So you're not supposed to have access to these things. And so,
I mentioned that to you before.
yeah, so what they found was that a lot of our heat ducting that was up in the attic had holes poked in it throughout the building. And so I had heard the crew say that a lot of the bedrooms, the temperature management in those bedrooms was extremely poor. And that's because a lot of those lines carrying heat had holes poked in them to infuse heated air into the attic space. And this was keeping the pipes from freezing. Now, I can't say if that was intentional or not, but that's what we've seen. So when we start running these heat pumps, and they're of course under the drop ceiling, that heat was not going up into the space where the pipes were in. So now there's no heat where there's always been heat, and the pipes started to freeze. So I had 3 different insulation companies come in. One of them told me he was from here in town, and he said he only does residential. This project was too big for him, but he felt that spray foam was the way to go. I had 2 other additional insulation companies come in, and both of them said the same thing. They said they felt that the layout of the building and the poor distribution of insulation that's currently up there, they felt that the best way to insulate this building, especially to prevent further issues like this, is to use spray foam on the underside of the roof decks. So our quotes from those 2 agencies were between 50 and 75,000, depending on how thick you go with your foam. The next note, MMA engineer, so Maine Municipal, as they sent their insurance adjuster in, and then their senior claims analyst came in to go through medical supplies with me that were ruined from the second pipe break. The engineer said that building codes are about to change in April, and they're gonna go through a thicker amount of spray foam that has to be applied. And that's because of the issues they've seen with moisture going through the foam. So that could potentially lead us to the higher end of this quote. We have created an RFP. It's currently open. Responses are due by March 10th. And that's the link to the RFP.
That seems high. $75,000?
Spray foam is very expensive.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Oh,
Worth every
absolutely.
penny though.
God. Right.
And I find this.
If you spray foam, you're gonna have to use
I would-
fireproof,
I do have a.
you're gonna have to put fireproof paint on it too, aren't you?
Be contract.
I don't know the answer to that, sir. Sorry.
All right.
Yes. What's that?
Well, thank you very much, Chief, for coming and giving this presentation for us.
No?
Y'all have a good night. You too, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. All right.
We will move on to item 36, discussion and consideration of the proposed update to chapter 739 of the personnel policy.
All right, so you guys have seen this before, and I sent the updates to you, I think, a couple of weeks ago, so I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
I have. Because, hold on, I gotta find it. Yeah. So,
There you go.
chapter 8, section 14, I think it does. Yes. Has to do with emergency closings.
Yep,
Are snow closed emergencies?
it can be.
Whether it's considered an emergency and fires. Emergency is something that happens. I see it as something that happens right now in particular.
So.
Well, it says severe, it's
Sometimes.
not just snow, is it? What's that? Are you? You're talking about this, right?
Okay, so what are you getting at, counselor? If you're wanting to change, then let's talk about it.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, my same old argument. The fact that I don't think we should be, even though this year we haven't done it much, one day. I don't think we should be paying employees to stay home.
I don't think we should be punitive about employees when we feel like it's unsafe for them to come to work, or it's unsafe for the public to come to the town office. I don't think that. I think at that point, Roy, you're gonna have a real problem hiring employees if they feel like they're gonna be punished every time that it snows, that they don't get paid.
So, show up to work. Well, it's, how is that being punished? The rest of the world has to show up to work. The entire private sector shows up to work.
You're putting them at risk.
I mean, it depends if it's an ice storm or if it's really bad. I'm not talking a few inches of snow. I'm talking real bad storm. I don't have a problem if it's a safety issue with the town manager making that determination. I mean, I just think it's not, and I don't think we've had, you know, a lot of those situations.
So,
This year
for last year,
or last year, we haven't had any real bad storms this year.
well, I would say this, so the one day that we closed, the next day, when I came to work, the roads were still really, really slippery.
Well, mostly, first, you guys came in the next day versus the day you closed.
Well, what,
Sure. Just saying, this one thing, to Roy's point, I mean, I think you've done a good job managing it, and I appreciate that versus what's been happening prior to.
my mouth off.
I just wanted to just say this publicly, that if we really think that closing the town is the town employees going home and staying home and not going to do something else, or other folks not going around doing business, other business to go to the grocery store or going to the post office, we're kidding ourselves. So just so you know, I don't think closing the town is preventing people from being out on the roads. That's just wanna say that.
Let's say.
To be fair.
Deterrent, yeah.
Let me get a word in edgewise here.
Go ahead.
I certainly don't mean to criticize Roy, but you tell, I plow. You know, when it snows, we know what we have to do. But a lot of people that don't tow, that don't plow, don't operate equipment, you know, are fairly clueless about what to do when the snowflakes start flying. So there's a different standard of when it's safe for the average town clerk or, I mean, so a particular town clerk or town manager, okay? Then the standard for us.
What about the teenage kid bagging groceries at Hannaford?
What can I tell you? I mean,
We can't base our policies based off of when they.
well, that's all I'm saying, and I do remember that morning, it was worse the next day, because I went by to do some plowing, and I saw Anthony's car in the parking lot, got there with one, and I said, holy crap, Anthony, and this.
I mean, if this doesn't.
Yeah.
I think if it becomes a problem, then we can
Address.
address it.
This
It
doesn't.
hasn't been a problem in my
Like I said,
opinion.
I think he's been fair.
Yeah.
In that.
I mean, I think we keep an eye on it
I
and
do
that's
think
it.
it's been dealt with much better in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Winters.
Under your tenure.
James had one quick.
Yeah, I'm reading this tonight, I don't read much in grammar, but the chapter 7, step 2, says if the grievance is not resolved within 10, then it comes, what's been struck out, so it should say calendar days of the initial discussion.
You are-
Just count,
you are correct, sir.
so. Or I really thought you would.
That was the attorney's change.
Okay. Passing the blame.
No, thank you. I think you guys did good work. I mean, overall, I mean, I thought there was some really good changes and really up-to-date changes that you made to this policy. Appreciate the time.
Well, and just so everyone knows, is now, or once you do approve this, assuming that this happens tonight, we're gonna publish the new policy for all the employees along with issuing to each one of them a new acknowledgement form to acknowledge that they've received it, read it, understand it. Will go into everyone's personnel file.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the updates to chapters 7 through 9 of the personnel policy, the town's personnel. So,
Any discussions? All in favor? All in favor.
All right, moving on to item 37, consideration of approval of the minutes of the February 3rd, February 10th, and February 17th. All right, James, and that was seconded by Aaron, any discussion? All in favor? Favor? Item 38, consideration of recommendations from the appointments committee.
It's time.
Okay. And to other business, so I will open it up to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience or online that would like to come to the podium or raise their hand?
I'll do it since I'm still here. I just wanted to take in all of the council meeting. So
Fabulous.
in listening to these discussions from the ambulance service and the taxpayer, I say I would prefer the one that is the Braun model. Do not buy the cheap crap because obviously it's not working for us and it's not going to get any better. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. Anybody else?
I'm That's okay, I can right up to the podium, just because it's a big record.
My name is Sean Forney, and I'm with Spectrum Generations, and I was asked to be here tonight to present our ask for town flags for Spectrum Generations. We weren't anywhere on the agenda or anything this evening. So I just,
My apologies.
no, that's okay, that's why I kind of in that.
Oh, you for it, sit through all of our stuff.
Yeah.
Exposing your face.
Thank you.
You're not the first town, there are some towns, like the town of Southport, who starts their meeting at 7 p.m. Who we have to stay and never have to speak, for a 4-hour meeting, so. Anyway, so I'm with Spectrum Generations, I'm a regional center director, my office is in Hollowell at the Cohen Center. And we're the area 8-10 agent, our primary source is Meals on, our primary service is Meals on Wheels. But we also offer aging and disability services. And so we are asking the town for a 5% increase over what we are typically asked. So we're asking for just over $1,800 this year in town funding to help continue to support the services that are provided. This is specifically to Winthrop residents, but this is to everyone within our region. The services we provided services to 182 individual Winthrop residents in 2024. We delivered 3,703 Meals on Wheels meetings to 23 different consumers. Those ones being our primary source, our primary service, excuse me. And our services rendered an estimated value of over $70,000 to just Winthrop consumers, or Winthrop residents, excuse me.
Go ahead, Linda.
So last year we gave you how much?
Roughly $1,650.
Yeah, to me, this is a worthwhile
Yeah.
thing, so I have no problem, making them, I mean,
You said it was a 5% increase to 1,800 or just over
No, 5% increase to $1,819.
819.
Yeah.
yeah, to me, this is,
I
make a motion. Can we, or no?
You know, if, yeah, it's not on the agenda, so if you folks are fine with that, we'll just make sure that that's in the budget for 18-19 for
Yeah,
Spectrum
I think that's
Generations.
I think you've got our support, but we'll put that on the agenda.
Thank you.
Yes.
But would you like me to attach next meeting?
You don't have to.
Only if you like.
Perfect. 10-19 cities do that. We appreciate it.
I'm a resident of Blockville, so.
Actually, right now,
So interesting, you can.
actually, right now, it is in the budget, the preliminary budget for the amount that you've requested, so.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much.
Sometimes if there was a way to tell,
I was
when
gonna
people
say,
had
I thought someone was
brief
interested.
presentations, we'd be able to read them.
2 of them. You president of Waterville, I've never attended a lot of times.
Oh my
I
gosh.
only attended one other one till the end and then.
Oh, okay, let's do
Great, well, thank you very much. If there's no other public comments, nothing online. We'll move on to the town manager's report.
So as I mentioned earlier today, I emailed to you the preliminary budget, and you have printed copies here. So at our next meeting, we'll start delving into the budget. But in the meantime, I would encourage you to, spend some time with it. And if you have any questions at all, Nick or I would be happy to work with you and help answer any questions that you have. As I mentioned earlier in the meeting right now, and we've still got some things that are to be determined, most notably capital improvements. But as of right now, our projected revenue increase exceeds our projected expenditure increase. That's an enviable position to be in.
What we project increase that now?
Yes.
For a year?
Yes, yeah. And so, for instance, I'm glad you brought that up, Roy, because those particular revenue increases are eclipse the expenditure increases in the ambulance service. So whatever increases are in the ambulance service are more than being paid for with the new funding formula. That's correct. That's correct.
Right.
I received some disappointing news. We did not get the sidewalk grant that we had applied for with Maine DOT. I haven't had a chance to call. They encouraged me to call and talk with them. They said that our application was well received, but they had a lot of applications, so it just may have been a numbers game and there's no space at the end. So, but it's not going to prevent us from, I mean, we've now got the application finished and we will resubmit it again next year for sure. Yes, they do that on a yearly basis. Kevin earlier didn't really allude to this, but I think it's worth noting that we are now fully staffed in our public works. So we've had some folks come and go, and now we're fully staffed. So unfortunately, it comes at the end of the winter season, but hopefully that'll be good moving forward. All day tomorrow from 10 o'clock through about 2 o'clock, we'll be engaged in a collective bargaining with 3 different unions. I expect that we may well have a contract to bring to you for the police union at the next meeting that you can look at and we can discuss in executive session of the next meeting. I sent a note to you earlier, but just so you know, on Monday, there will be a hearing for Representative Hassenfuss's bill regarding removing large recovery residences from the GA system.
That's Monday?
That's Monday.
What's the LD number?
I don't know off the top of my head.
All right.
It's in your email, Linda.
Okay. All right.
But I plan on attending and testifying. And so if there are any salient points that you think I should consider putting in those, I'm happy to have those, but just know that I do. And in fact, the MMA is going to be there testifying in support of the bill as well. And I've alerted the city of Augusta because they've shown some interest in that. Of course, we've partnered with them on some GA efforts. I think that they're probably going to be there, and their GA administrator sent out a note on the welfare director's listserv. So hopefully we'll get some support across the state for that bill.
Where is that in? What committee? I can find out in a minute. Okay. So.
It depends upon which committee they're each assigned. So, I also sent you earlier today the preliminary county budget, and I'm hoping to attend the budget committee's meeting on Wednesday evening because they're going to be discussing the sheriff and the jail, which are the 2 top biggest items in the county
Health and
budget.
Human Services.
Yeah. Just a reminder, maybe help to encourage some people to take out papers to run for our charter commission. We put out some information about that last week, and so we want people to run for the charter commission. And then 2 more things. At the next meeting, we'll also ask Chief Erlin to come and talk about the proposal with Monmouth that I sent to you guys a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, I thought it was talking about.
No.
They were supposed to call me.
So
Emergency,
So Chief Erlin will be at the next meeting to talk about that proposal. And as of the moment, we have 21 properties that are in some peril of being foreclosed upon, but 3 of those are the banks are going to take care of that. They're going to essentially repossess the properties. So that was as of today. And well, this is the dance, Linda, is everyone's,
the dance.
everyone's gonna wait until the last, the 11th hour, the 11th day of the 11th month. So the last day to take care of this is on Monday. So we'll probably see a lot of these things being resolved this week. And then even after that, then there's still a process that we have to go through. And so we do allow people, even after we've foreclosed, as we go through the process of trying to get it on the market of allowing them to make good on it. So that's the report.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, so the foreclosures, does that include the old nursing home on Old Lewiston Road?
Fairfield Manor.
No,
I don't believe that's on the.
no.
Well, I know that it's,
How better?
the ownership, the organization told us that it was in foreclosure. And that it's
Where's
going
this?
to revert to.
Heritage.
She's in the butter, so she knows, probably knows more.
Yeah, I know more about it than most people would know, because we deal with the water.
Yes.
That goes there.
Have we,
So I was just wondering if
Is
you knew about that.
well, not so much of a business, but she came in and did a proposal, where's the school, school board budget process?
I'll double check, Jim. She's going to come back. I know that she went, she got your input and you're going back to the school board. So I'll have to double check when we have her scheduled next. Also, I'm glad that you did mention that. For those of you who don't know, Dr. Foley has been hired to be the permanent superintendent and has signed a 3-year contract.
So,
For here?
Yes.
my other question, you lead it back to us, and it kind of goes back to a discussion, I'm glad we ended it, about the donations to the Redwood Coffee Watershed. The question came to my mind, we talked about claims the boat launches that are unmanned, and typically the one that's the new one on Invesco. And I love the launch, it's a great launch and what have you. Is there a possible way, or is that all inland fish and wildlife that's the owner of it, or is the town the owner of it? Because I'm wondering if we can limit the hours, so, middle of night, when we have people launching boats, we do the, set hours when you can launch a boat and, it's got a game.
Yeah, it's a state facility. So, but that's a good question. So I don't mind reaching out to IF&W and asking if that's.
I mean, if you did it, say, 1 in the morning or 6 in the morning, or
So that hopefully if someone's launching a boat, there is an inspector there.
Well, that's the goal, right?
Right.
So you try to get it that way, not trying to penalize anybody, but if we could keep the hours.
I don't think you can restrict access.
I understand, but I know that, I'll say this, I know there's one time down in the Norcross when I was a kid, they closed that gate, and you weren't allowed to go into that parking lot past certain hours.
After 9 o'clock.
Is it, yeah, so.
The town runs
out.
Okay, well, that was my question, the difference, so,
We can ask.
thanks.
One quick question on the school board. I left you a voicemail about she was supposed to bring some information back to us. I forget exactly what it was right off the top of my head, but. One, I remember the rankings. We asked for some information.
Yes, I do know because she and I spoke about that afterwards. And they are in the process of gathering up information across the county to see sort of where Winthrop aligns with whatever it was that you were asking.
Good. All right, Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Linda? All right, all in favor, thank you very much. Thank you. Time now 8:58.
So.